She thought hiding her scars would keep her safe. She was wrong. When Avery Bennett catches the eye of Manhattan's most dangerous man at her best friend's wedding, her carefully constructed invisible life shatters in a single glance. Dominic Russo doesn't just see her, he claims her. And in his world of power, violence, and impossible choices, love isn't a refuge. It's a weapon. Now Avery must decide. Stay hidden and survive, or step into the light and risk everything she spent 8 years protecting. If you're ready for a story about scars, secrets, and second chances, stay until the end. Hit that like button and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The scar ran from Avery Bennett's left temple to her jawline, a jagged reminder of the night that split her life into, before and after. 8 years ago, she'd been fearless. 21, art school student, weekend rock climber, the kind of girl who wore bright red lipstick to grocery stores just because she could. Then came the car accident on the FDR Drive. The drunk driver who ran the red light. The glass that carved through her face like a signature she never asked for. The physical healing took 6 months. The other kind never quite finished. Now at 29, Avery Bennett had perfected the art of disappearing. She wore her dark hair long and loose, always swept forward over the left side of her face. She favored high-collared blouses and strategic scarves. She'd built a small life that required minimal human contact. A flower shop in a quiet Brooklyn neighborhood, a rent-controlled apartment she shared with her younger sister, and a carefully curated circle of exactly 3 people who'd known her before the accident. One of those people was getting married today. The ceremony was held at the plaza, because of course it was. Chelsea Morningstar, now Chelsea Whitmore, had never done anything by halves. The ballroom glittered with enough crystal chandeliers to illuminate a small city. White roses cascaded from every available surface. The guest list read like a Fortune 500 directory. Avery sat in the back row, as planned. She'd arrived late, as planned. She'd positioned herself near the side exit, as planned. Everything according to plan, because plans kept you safe. Chelsea looked radiant in silk and diamonds, her blonde hair swept into an elegant updo that probably cost more than Avery's monthly rent. Her groom, Harrison Whitmore III, stood at the altar in a custom tuxedo, looking every inch the investment banker heir he was. They were perfect together, magazine cover perfect, the kind of couple that made other people believe in fairy tales. Avery was happy for her friend, genuinely, deeply happy. Chelsea had been there during the worst of it, sitting in hospital rooms, holding Avery's hand through surgeries, never once flinching at the raw, angry wounds that had replaced the face Avery used to know. So when the officiant asked that ancient question, "Does anyone object to this union?" and the room fell into expectant silence, Avery felt tears slip down her cheeks. Happy tears. Grateful tears. The kind that came when you watched someone you loved step into their forever, while you remained firmly planted in your carefully controlled present. She didn't notice him watching. Didn't notice the man in the third row, 3 seats from the aisle, who hadn't looked at the bride once since the ceremony began. Dominic Russo had been watching Avery Bennett from the moment she slipped into the back row, late and lovely and trying so desperately to be invisible. He noticed everything about her. The way she held her body, shoulders curved inward, making herself smaller. The curtain of dark hair that fell across the left side of her face, repositioned every few minutes with an unconscious gesture that spoke of long habit. The simple navy dress that was elegant but unremarkable, designed to help her blend into backgrounds. But it was her hands that caught his attention first. Florist's hands, he thought. The nails were short and practical, but her fingers moved with particular grace, the kind that came from working with delicate things. There was a small cut on her thumb, recently healed. A thorn prick, probably. She was trying to hide. That much was obvious. Dominic made his living reading people, their tells, their fears, their weaknesses. In his world, information was currency and observation was survival. He could catalog a room in 30 seconds, identify threats in 15, decide who lived or died in less than 10. He'd been doing it since he was 17, when his father's murder had thrust him into leadership of the Russo organization years before he was ready. Now, at 35, he ran the most powerful criminal enterprise in New York with the kind of calculated precision that made other men respect him and fear him in equal measure. He didn't attend society weddings. He attended business meetings disguised as society weddings. Harrison Whitmore's father, Harrison Jr., had borrowed money from Russo Interest 5 years ago to cover some unfortunate gambling debts. The debt had been paid, but the connection remained. Today was about maintaining that connection, about being seen in the right places with the right people, about the careful theater of legitimacy that kept men like Dominic out of courtrooms and off of front pages. He should have been watching the bride's family section, cataloging which relatives might be useful for future ventures. He should have been monitoring the security detail he'd noticed stationed discreetly around the perimeter, professional, but not quite professional enough to be federal. Instead, he watched the girl in the back row cry. There was something about the tears that arrested him. They fell silently, quickly brushed away with those graceful fingers. No dramatic sobbing, no theatrical emotion. Just quiet tears that she clearly wished she wasn't shedding, falling for reasons he suddenly wanted very much to understand. The ceremony ended. The bride and groom kissed. The room erupted in applause. The girl in the back row stood immediately, already moving toward the exit. "Boss?" The voice came from Dominic's right. Marcus, his head of security, 6'4" of barely contained violence in an expertly tailored suit. "Reception's in the terrace ballroom. Senator Castellanos here. You wanted an introduction." "Later," Dominic said, his eyes still tracking the dark-haired woman as she slipped through the side door. Marcus followed his gaze. "Problem?" "Information. Who is she?" "Give me 3 minutes." Marcus moved away, phone already to his ear. Dominic made his way through the crowd, accepting congratulations he had no business receiving, shaking hands he'd rather break, smiling the smile that his mother used to say could charm or threaten depending on what the situation required. By the time he reached the terrace, Marcus had returned. "Avery Bennett, 29, childhood friend of the bride. Owns a flower shop in Brooklyn. Bloom and Thistle, modest operation, good reputation. Lives in Park Slope with her younger sister Emily, 24, law student at Columbia. Parents deceased, mother 8 years ago, father 3 years ago. No criminal record, not even a parking ticket. No social media presence. No romantic relationships on record." Dominic processed the information quickly. "The flowers for this wedding?" "Contracted through Elegance and Bloom, the bride's preferred vendor. But according to the wedding planner I just spoke with, the bride insisted her childhood friend personally design the bridal bouquet and the centerpieces for the family tables. So she had talent, connections, and she was deliberately keeping herself small." 8 years ago, Dominic said. "What happened 8 years ago?" Marcus was already pulling it up. "Car accident on the FDR. Drunk driver, T-bone collision, mother killed instantly. Avery Bennett sustained significant facial injuries, multiple surgeries. The other driver served 18 months. Understanding clicked into place. The hair, the positioning, the invisibility. Dominic found her on the far end of the terrace, partially hidden behind a marble column, looking out at Central Park. The reception was in full swing inside. Champagne flowing, orchestra playing, the beautiful people doing what beautiful people did. Out here, the late afternoon sun turned the park into copper and gold. The air still held the last warmth of September. She stood with her arms wrapped around herself, despite the warmth, still trying to be small. He approached slowly, deliberately making noise so he wouldn't startle her. "The centerpieces are exceptional," he said, stopping a respectful distance away. "Particularly the way you incorporated autumn branches with the roses. Most people would have gone predictable. You went bold." She turned, and he got his first clear look at her face. The scar was significant, a pale line that pulled slightly at the corner of her left eye, traveled down her cheek, and ended at her jaw. The surgeons had done good work, but some things couldn't be fully erased. What struck him wasn't the scar. It was everything else. She had the kind of face that stayed with you, dark eyes that held intelligence and wariness in equal measure, sharp cheekbones, a mouth that looked like it might know how to smile even if it wasn't smiling now. She was beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with symmetry and everything to do with presence. "Thank you," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "I didn't realize anyone noticed." "I noticed things," Dominic said. "It's a professional hazard." "What profession is that?" "Complicated." A ghost of something, amusement maybe, crossed her face. "That's not an answer." "No," he agreed. "It's not." They stood in silence for a moment. Inside, someone laughed too loudly. The orchestra shifted into something classical and forgettable. "You're Dominic Russo," she said finally. It wasn't a question. "You know who I am? Chelsea pointed you out earlier, said you were an important business associate of Harrison's father." She paused. She didn't say what kind of business. The complicated kind. This time she definitely almost smiled. "You use that word a lot." "It's accurate a lot." Another silence, but this one felt different, less careful. "I should go back inside," Avery said, but she didn't move. "Should you?" Dominic asked. "Or do you want to?" "Those aren't always the same thing." "No," he said. "They're not." She looked at him then, really looked at him, and Dominic had the strange sensation of being catalogued the way he catalogued others. Being read, being seen. Most people looked at Dominic Russo and saw power, money, danger, the sharp suit and sharper eyes, the controlled violence that hummed beneath his surface like electricity through a wire. This woman looked at him and saw something else. He wasn't sure what, but he wanted to know. "Why did you cry?" he asked. The question surprised them both. "I'm sorry?" "During the ceremony. You cried. Why?" Color touched her cheeks. "That's a strange question to ask a stranger." "We're not strangers," Dominic said. "We're two people hiding on a terrace while a party happens without us. That makes us something." She studied him for a long moment, then quietly, "I cried because Chelsea was so happy. Because she deserves to be happy. Because watching someone you love step into their forever when you—" She stopped, shook her head. "Never mind, it doesn't matter." "When you what?" "When you're still trying to figure out your right now," she finished. Dominic understood that better than she knew. His entire life was built on control because chaos had taken everything once. The night his father died, the night he watched his uncle betray the family and put a bullet in the man who'd raised him, that night had taught him that the only way to survive was to never let the universe call the shots again. Control the chaos, or the chaos controls you. "Chelsea's lucky to have a friend who loves her that much," he said. "I'm the lucky one," Avery replied. "She stayed when most people left." The scar, Dominic thought. She was talking about the scar and whatever came after. "People are idiots," he said. She did smile then, small but real. "Sometimes, yeah." The terrace doors opened and Chelsea herself emerged, champagne flute in hand, looking every inch the radiant bride. "There you are!" She swept toward Avery, her dress a cloud of silk and tulle. "I've been looking everywhere for you. You disappeared." "Just needed some air," Avery said, already repositioning her hair, already shrinking back into herself. Chelsea noticed Dominic and her expression shifted into something more polished. "Mr. Russo, I hope you're enjoying the celebration." "It's beautiful," Dominic said smoothly. "Your friend has exceptional talent." "Doesn't she?" Chelsea beamed, linking her arm through Avery's. "Ave designed all the flowers herself. She wouldn't let anyone else touch the important pieces." "I'm not surprised," Dominic said, keeping his eyes on Avery. "Clearly she brings that kind of care to things that matter." Avery's cheeks colored again, but before she could respond, Harrison appeared, accompanied by an older couple Dominic recognized immediately. Senator and Mrs. Castellano. The next 30 minutes dissolved into the practiced choreography of high society networking. Introductions, small talk, the careful dance of power and influence. Dominic played his part perfectly. The successful businessman with interests in real estate and import/export. Nothing to see here, nothing questionable. But he tracked Avery in his peripheral vision, watched as she slowly detached herself from the group, as she made her quiet excuses, as she prepared to disappear again. Not yet, he thought. When she finally slipped away, heading back inside, Dominic excused himself with the smooth efficiency of someone who'd spent a lifetime ending conversations on his own terms. He found her near the coat check, already collecting a simple black jacket. "Leaving early?" he asked. She startled slightly, then recovered. "The important part's over. Chelsea and Harrison are busy with family. I'll see them when they get back from the honeymoon." "You're avoiding the party." "Oh, I'm avoiding the crowd," she corrected. "There's a difference." "Not much of one." She pulled on her jacket, worn leather, well cared for but old. "Mr. Russo." "Dominic." "Dominic," she said, testing the name like she wasn't sure she had permission to use it. Why are you following me? It was a fair question. He should let her go. Should return to the reception and the senator and the careful maintenance of his legitimate facade. Instead, he said, "Have dinner with me." "What? Dinner? Tomorrow night? Somewhere quiet? Good food? Better wine? No crowds?" She stared at him like he'd just suggested they rob a bank. "I don't even know you. That's why people have dinner, to get to know each other." "I don't—" She stopped, struggling for words. "I don't do this." "This? Dinner with strangers, dating, any of it." "Why not?" The question clearly caught her off guard. She gestured vaguely at herself, at the scar, at the universe. "I think that's obvious." "It's not obvious to me," Dominic said. "What I see is a talented, intelligent woman who designed half this wedding, who makes her best friend cry happy tears, who said something earlier about trying to figure out her right now. I'd like to have dinner with her. What's obvious about saying no to that?" Avery opened her mouth, closed it, looked at him like he'd just spoken a language she didn't understand. "I need to go," she said finally. "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I have right now." She turned and walked toward the elevators. Her shoulders curved inward again, making herself small. Dominic let her go, but he memorized everything. The way she moved, the almost smile, the intelligence in those dark eyes. "Bloom and Thistle," Marcus had said. Brooklyn. Tomorrow was Sunday. Flower shops did good business on Sundays. Marcus appeared at his shoulder. "Problem?" "No," Dominic said, still watching the elevator doors close. "Possibility." "Boss, you want me to look into her more thoroughly?" "No, I'll handle this myself." Marcus knew better than to argue when Dominic used that tone. The Castellano introduction went well. He's interested in discussing the waterfront development project. Business, territory, the carefully orchestrated empire that demanded his attention every waking hour. But for the first time in longer than he could remember, Dominic found himself thinking about something, someone else. Sunday morning came wrapped in the kind of perfect September weather that made New Yorkers forget they lived in a concrete jungle. Clear skies, warm sun, air that smelled like possibility. Avery opened Bloom and Thistle at 7 a.m., same as always. Sundays were busy, bouquets for brunches, apology flowers for Saturday night mistakes, arrangements for family dinners and first dates, and all the small moments that people marked with blooms. She loved her shop, loved the smell of fresh flowers and earth, the riot of colors that greeted her every morning, the quiet satisfaction of creating something beautiful from stems and petals and careful attention. The shop itself was small but perfectly formed, a corner location in Park Slope with big windows that let in good light. She'd painted the walls a soft cream, installed reclaimed wood shelving, and filled every available surface with flowers. Roses and lilies, sunflowers and orchids, seasonal branches and exotic imports. It was her sanctuary, her safe place. The one thing in her life that was entirely, completely hers. She was rearranging the window display when the door chimed. "We're open," she called, not looking up from the sunflowers she was positioning. "Good to know." That voice. Smooth, controlled, unmistakable. Avery turned so fast she nearly knocked over a vase. Dominic Russo stood in her doorway, looking utterly out of place and completely at ease. He wore dark jeans and a black sweater, expensive but casual, his hair slightly mussed like he'd actually run his fingers through it instead of letting some stylist perfect it. He looked less like a businessman and more like trouble. "What are you doing here?" The question came out sharper than she intended. "Buying flowers," he said, closing the door behind him. "That's what one does in a flower shop, isn't it?" "How did you find me?" "You told Chelsea you owned Bloom and Thistle. She told me where it was." He moved further into the shop, examining the displays with what looked like genuine interest. "This is impressive. How long have you been in business?" 5 years. And Chelsea wouldn't just tell you where my shop was. She did when I told her I wanted to send you flowers as a thank you for the wedding arrangements." He picked up a perfect white rose, examining it closely. "I wasn't lying. The arrangements were exceptional. You should be proud." Avery felt her carefully constructed composure cracking. "Mr. Russo, Dominic, I appreciate the compliment, but you didn't come here to buy flowers." "No." he agreed, setting down the rose with surprising care. I came to convince you to have dinner with me. I already said no. You said you needed to go. That's different than no. It was meant as no. Was it? He moved closer, and Avery fought the urge to step back, because what I heard was a woman who spent a long time telling herself she doesn't deserve nice things, saying no to something nice before anyone could say no to her first. The accuracy of that statement hit her like a physical blow. You don't know me, she said. No, but I'd like to. That's why people have dinner together. He paused. Unless you're actually not interested, in which case I'll apologize for bothering you and leave. But I don't think that's what this is. What do you think this is? Fear, he said simply. You're afraid. Of you? Of what I represent, of stepping outside your carefully controlled world, of being seen. Avery felt her throat tighten. He'd been in her shop for 3 minutes, and he'd already seen too much, read her too clearly, pulled apart her defenses with the casual precision of someone who made a living understanding people. I should get back to work, she said, her voice not quite steady. What are you afraid will happen? Dominic asked, his voice gentler now. Worst case scenario. We have dinner, we don't connect, we both move on with our lives. Best case scenario, you have a good meal and interesting conversation with someone who finds you fascinating. Why? The question burst out before she could stop it. Why me? You could have dinner with anyone. You could... She gestured at herself, at her hidden face, at her small shop and smaller life. Why would you want to have dinner with me? Dominic looked at her for a long moment. Then he said something she didn't expect. 8 years ago, I watched my father die. Someone I trusted put a gun to his head and pulled the trigger while I was forced to watch. I was 17. In one night, I went from being a kid with a future to being the head of an organization I wasn't ready to lead, surrounded by people who wanted me dead or wanted to use me. Avery froze, the confession hanging between them like something fragile. I survived by learning control, Dominic continued, by making myself untouchable, by never letting anyone see weakness or uncertainty. I built walls so high that I forgot what it felt like to want something just because I wanted it, not because it served some strategic purpose. He took a step closer. Then yesterday, I watched you cry at a wedding. Really cry. Not performance tears, but real ones. And I watched you try to hide them, try to hide yourself, try to take up as little space as possible. And something in me recognized something in you. Two people who've spent a long time building walls, standing on opposite sides of a terrace. Avery couldn't breathe, couldn't look away. So why you? Dominic said. Because for the first time in 8 years, I saw someone and thought about something other than control and strategy and survival. I thought about possibility, and I'd like to explore that if you'll let me. The shop fell into silence. Outside, Brooklyn hummed with Sunday morning life. Inside, Avery Bennett stood at a crossroads she didn't know existed 5 minutes ago. Say no, the careful part of her whispered. Send him away. Go back to your safe, small life. But another part, the part that used to rock climb and wear red lipstick to grocery stores, the part that had been buried under 8 years of careful invisibility, that part whispered something else. Say yes. One dinner, she heard herself say. Somewhere quiet. No crowds. Dominic's smile was small but genuine. One dinner, I know a place. I need to close the shop at 6. I could meet you at 7. I'll pick you up. I'll meet you, Avery said firmly. Where? He pulled a card from his pocket, thick, expensive paper with minimal text, just a name and phone number. Text me your address. I'll send you the location. She took the card, their fingers brushing for just a second. This doesn't mean... It means you said yes to dinner, Dominic interrupted gently. Nothing more, nothing less. Whatever happens after that is up to you. He headed for the door, then paused. Avery? Yes? Thank you for saying yes. Then he was gone, the door chime marking his exit. Avery stood in her shop, surrounded by flowers and sunlight and the careful life she'd built, holding a business card that felt like a lit match. Her phone buzzed. A text from Chelsea. OMG, did Dominic Russo really just come to your shop? He texted asking for the address, and I thought he was serious about sending flowers, but then he went there? Call me immediately. Avery stared at the message, then at the card in her hand, then at her reflection in the window, her hair falling forward, hiding her scar, hiding herself. Before she could overthink it, she pulled her hair back, looked at her full face in the glass. The scar caught the morning light, pale against her skin. She looked like someone who'd survived something. Maybe it was time to start living like it. She pulled out her phone and texted the number on the card. "This is Avery, 347 9th Street, apartment 3B. See you at 7. The response came within seconds. "See you at 7. And Avery, wear your hair however makes you comfortable. I'm interested in all of you, not just the parts you think are acceptable." She read it 3 times. Then she pulled her hair back again and got to work. Organized that morning. When Emily came home from her study group at 4, she found Avery stress cleaning the already immaculate shop. "Okay, what's wrong?" Emily asked, dropping her bag on the counter. "You only clean like this when you're freaking out about something." Avery looked at her sister, brilliant, fearless Emily, who'd been 16 when the accident happened and had somehow managed to grow into this spectacular human despite everything. Law school at Columbia. Top of her class. The future burning bright in front of her. "I have a date," Avery said. Emily's eyes went wide. "I'm sorry, what?" "A date. Tonight. At 7. "A date? You. Tonight." Emily processed this like it was a complex legal argument. "With who?" "Dominic Russo." "The guy from the wedding?" The one Chelsea said was, and I quote, "extremely powerful and probably dangerous, but in a hot way." "That's the one." "Av." Emily came around the counter, took her sister's hands. "Are you sure about this?" "No. Not even a little bit. But I said yes anyway." "Why?" It was the same question Avery had been asking herself all day. Why say yes to a man she didn't know, who clearly operated in a world she didn't understand, who looked at her like he could see through every defense she'd built? "Because I'm tired," she said finally. "I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of making myself small. I'm tired of letting what happened 8 years ago dictate what happens for the next 8. Emily squeezed her hands. "Then fuck yes, go on this date. Wear something gorgeous, let him pay for expensive wine, and remember that you're a catch. Scar or no scar, you're brilliant and talented and beautiful. I'm not done. You've spent 8 years taking care of me, building this business, being there for everyone else. It's your turn. So go, have dinner, let someone see you, actually see you." Avery felt tears sting her eyes. What if he's lucky enough to get to know you?" Emily finished. "Ave, you can't control what other people think or feel. You can only control what you do. So do this. Be brave for 2 hours. See what happens." At 6:30, Avery stood in front of her bathroom mirror, second-guessing everything. The dress was simple, dark green, fitted but not tight, hitting just above the knee. Emily had insisted she borrow heels. Her makeup was subtle, just enough to feel polished. And her hair, she'd tried it down, the familiar curtain hiding the left side of her face. Safe, comfortable, invisible. Then she thought about Dominic's text. "I'm interested in all of you." She pulled her hair back into a low bun, leaving her face fully visible. The scar caught the bathroom light, a pale reminder of everything that had changed and everything she'd survived. "You look beautiful," Emily said from the doorway. "I look terrified." "You look brave." "There's a difference." At 6:55, Avery's phone buzzed. "I'm outside. No rush." She grabbed her small clutch, checked her appearance one more time, and headed downstairs before she could change her mind. Dominic stood beside a sleek black car, and Avery felt her breath catch. He wore a charcoal suit, no tie, looking every inch the powerful man Chelsea had warned her about. But when he saw her, his expression shifted into something softer. "You look beautiful," he said. "Thank you." She gestured at the car. "This is subtle." He smiled. "Would you prefer I'd taken the subway?" "Honestly, kind of." "Next time," he said, opening the door for her. "Tonight, let me do this properly." The restaurant was in Tribeca, the kind of place that didn't advertise because it didn't need to. Intimate lighting, private booze, a wine list that probably cost more than Avery's monthly rent. The host greeted Dominic by name and led them to a corner booth with a view of the city lights. "You come here often," Avery observed as they sat. "When I want to have a conversation without being interrupted," Dominic said. "The owner is discreet." "Is that code for something?" "It's code for he values privacy, and I value that quality." The waiter appeared with a bottle of wine, something Italian that Dominic must have ordered ahead of time. He poured 2 glasses and disappeared. "To possibilities," Dominic said, raising his glass. Avery touched her glass to his. "To not running away immediately." "That's a low bar." "It's where I'm starting." They ordered, Dominic something with lamb, Avery wild salmon, and then the real conversation began. "Tell me about your shop," Dominic said. "How did you end up in flowers?" So she told him. About art school, about the accident, about the long recovery and longer rebuilding, about how flowers had been the first beautiful thing she'd been able to look at after the surgeries, how their temporary nature had made sense when everything felt temporary and broken. "My mom used to garden," she said. "Nothing fancy, just a small plot behind our house in Connecticut. She'd drag me out there every spring to plant bulbs. I hated it then. Dirt under my fingernails, bugs, the sun making me sweat. After she died, I couldn't stand to see flowers. They reminded me of everything I'd lost." "What changed?" "Time, I guess, and Chelsea. She sent me a single sunflower every week for a year. Just one. With a note that said, 'Still here, still love you.' After about 6 months, I started keeping them in water instead of throwing them away. After a year, I started going to the flower market. Eventually, I couldn't imagine doing anything else." Dominic listened like every word mattered. Like he was filing away details not for advantage, but because he genuinely wanted to understand. "Your turn," Avery said. "Tell me about your complicated business." His expression shifted, not closed exactly, but more careful. "What do you want to know?" "The truth. Chelsea said you're connected, that your business dealings are not entirely above board. Is that accurate?" "Yes." The simple honesty surprised her. "You're just going to admit it?" "You asked for truth. I'm not going to insult you with comfortable lies." "So you're what? Mafia? Organized crime?" "Those are loaded terms. What I am is the head of an organization that my family has run for 3 generations. We handle certain business interests that operate in gray areas: import, export, territory management, protection services." "That's a very corporate way of saying you break laws." "Yes." Avery should have been afraid, should have grabbed her purse and walked out. Instead, she asked, "Do you hurt people?" Dominic considered the question seriously. "I try not to, but I won't lie to you. My world involves violence sometimes. I've done things I'm not proud of to protect my people and my interests. I've made choices that haunt me, but I follow a code. I don't traffic in drugs or people. I don't prey on the vulnerable, and I try very hard to keep collateral damage to an absolute minimum." "That's still morally questionable," he finished. "Yes. I'm not asking you to approve of what I do, Avery. I'm just being honest about who I am." The food arrived, giving her time to process. They ate in silence for a few minutes, and Avery tried to reconcile the man across from her with the confession he'd just made. Finally, she said, "Why tell me all this? Why not just keep up the successful businessman facade?" "Because I don't want to lie to you, too, and because if this," he gestured between them, "is going to be anything, it needs to start with honesty." "What is this?" "I don't know yet, but I'd like to find out." They talked for 2 hours. About Emily and law school, about books and music and the strange intimacy of city life, about loss and survival and the different ways people rebuilt themselves after everything fell apart. Dominic was intelligent, observant, surprisingly funny when he let his guard down. He asked questions that showed he was listening, not just waiting for his turn to talk. And he never once looked at her scar the way other people did, with pity or curiosity or poorly concealed discomfort. He just looked at her. When the check came, Avery reached for it. Dominic beat her to it. "I invited you," he said. "I'm capable of paying for my own dinner." "I know you are. But let me do this." It should have felt controlling. Instead, it felt like care. Outside the restaurant, the night had turned cool. Dominic shrugged off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders before she could protest. "I can drive you home," he said, "or we can walk for a bit. Your choice." Avery looked at the city lights, at the man beside her, at the possibility hanging in the air between them. "Walk," she said. They walked through Tribeca, past expensive lofts and late-night cafes. They didn't talk much, just existed in the same space, finding a rhythm that felt surprisingly natural. When they finally reached his car, Dominic turned to her. "I had a good time tonight," he said. "So did I, against my better judgment." He smiled. "Can I see you again?" "I don't know. This is a lot to process." "Take your time, process, think, decide what you want." He pulled out his phone. "But I'm going to text you tomorrow anyway. You can choose whether to respond." Persistent. "When I see something worth pursuing, I don't give up easily." He drove her home, walking her to her building entrance even though she insisted it wasn't necessary. "Thank you," Avery said at the door. "For dinner, for honesty, for not running when I asked difficult questions. Thank you for saying yes, for taking a chance on possibility." He didn't try to kiss her, just waited until she was safely inside before returning to his car. Upstairs, Emily was waiting with ice cream and interrogation. "So?" she demanded. "How was it? What's he like? Are you seeing him again? Did he kiss you?" Avery collapsed onto the couch, still wearing his jacket, trying to sort through the whirlwind of the evening. "It was good," she said finally. "Confusing and honest and good. But he's dangerous, Em. Not like violent dangerous. Well, maybe that too. But dangerous to the careful life I've built. He sees too much. Asks too many questions. Makes me want things I've convinced myself I don't need." "Maybe you do need them," Emily said gently. "Maybe you deserve them." That night, alone in her room, Avery looked at herself in the mirror. At the scar that had defined her for 8 years. At the face she'd spent so long hiding. She thought about Dominic's words. "I'm interested in all of you, not just the parts you think are acceptable." Her phone buzzed. A text. "Made it home. Thank you again for tonight. Sleep well, Avery." She stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed, "Thank you for seeing me." His response came immediately. "Hard not to. You're exceptionally worth seeing." Avery fell asleep wearing his jacket, a small smile on her face, and for the first time in 8 years, she dreamed about the future instead of the past. The text started the next morning. Nothing overwhelming, just a simple good morning at 8 a.m., followed by a photo of an espresso cup at 9 with the caption, "Thinking about last night." Avery stared at her phone while arranging a bouquet for a regular customer, Mrs. Chen, who came in every Monday for fresh peonies. "You're smiling at your phone," Mrs. Chen observed. "That's new." "Just a text from a friend," Avery said, feeling her cheeks warm. "A friend who makes you smile like that is more than a friend, sweetheart." After Mrs. Chen left, Avery typed back, "What part of last night?" The response came within seconds, all of it, but especially the part where you said yes. Over the next week, the texts became a rhythm, morning greetings, photos of things that made him think of her, a sculpture in a park, the way light hit a building at sunset, a vintage botanical print he found in an antique shop, questions about her day, her work, the flowers she was designing. He didn't ask to see her again, didn't push, just maintained this steady, patient presence that both unsettled and comforted her. "He's courting you," Chelsea said over lunch on Thursday. They sat at their usual spot, a small cafe near Avery's shop that made excellent sandwiches and minded their own business. "That's an old-fashioned word." "It's an old-fashioned approach. My grandmother would approve." Chelsea bit into her turkey club. "Have you Googled him yet?" "No." "Liar." Avery had in fact Googled him, had found surprisingly little. A few mentions in business journals, some photos from charity events, a carefully curated presence that revealed nothing substantial. The comment sections were more interesting, filled with speculation and rumor, but nothing concrete. "What did Harrison's father say about him?" Avery asked. Chelsea's expression shifted into something more serious. That Dominic Russo is extremely intelligent, extremely dangerous, and operates by a code that makes him more reliable than most legitimate businessmen. That if you have his respect, you have a powerful ally. And if you cross him... She didn't finish the sentence. That's not comforting. It wasn't meant to be. Ave, I love that you're putting yourself out there. But you need to go into this with your eyes open. Dominic's world isn't like ours. I know. Do you? Because from what Harrison says, the Russo organization controls half the import business on the East Coast, has connections that go all the way to... She stopped, lowered her voice. Just be careful. Please. That night, Dominic called. Not texted, actually called. His voice warmed through the phone. I'm breaking my rule, he said. What rule? The one where I give you space to decide what you want without pressure. Why break it now? Because there's an art exhibition opening tomorrow night at a gallery in Chelsea. Small, intimate, featuring a photographer who documents urban transformation. I think you'd appreciate it. Come with me. Avery hesitated. One dinner was easy to rationalize. This felt like something more. It's just art, Dominic said, reading her silence. No expectations. I'll pick you up at 7. We'll look at photographs. I'll take you home by 10. You can even bring Emily if you want a buffer. You're very good at this. At what? Making things sound reasonable when they're not. Is it unreasonable to want to spend time with you? No, but it's complicated. Avery, he said, his voice gentler. Everything worth having is complicated. The question is whether the complication is worth it. She closed her eyes, thought about the week of texts, the way he'd looked at her at dinner, the surprising ease of their conversation. 7 o'clock, she said, and I'm meeting you there. I'll text you the address. The gallery was in a converted warehouse, all exposed brick and industrial lighting. The photographs were stunning, black and white images of New York in transition, old buildings being torn down and new ones rising, the collision of past and future frozen in silver gelatin. Dominic met her outside, dressed in dark jeans and a navy sweater that made his eyes look almost black. You came, he said, and she heard genuine pleasure in his voice. I said I would. You could have changed your mind. I almost did. 3 times. He smiled. What stopped you? Curiosity, and the fact that Emily threatened to drag me here herself if I bailed. They moved through the exhibition slowly, studying each photograph. Dominic had strong opinions, which compositions worked, which felt forced, how light and shadow created narrative. You know a lot about photography, Avery observed. My mother was a photographer before she married my father. She used to take me to galleries when I was a kid, teach me to really look at images, not just see them. His voice carried something wistful. She died when I was 15. Cancer. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago, but I still see the world the way she taught me to see it, always looking for the story behind the surface. They stopped in front of a particularly striking image, a demolition site at sunset, half a building gone, the remaining structure skeletal against an orange sky. That's what survival looks like, Avery said quietly. Something broken, but still standing. Dominic looked at her. Is that how you see yourself? Sometimes, don't you? No, he said. I see someone who rebuilt. There's a difference between surviving and thriving. You're doing both. But before she could respond, a voice cut through the gallery. Dominic Russo, didn't expect to see you appreciating art. A man approached. Late 40s, expensive suit, smile that didn't reach his eyes. 2 younger men flanked him, clearly security. Dominic's entire demeanor shifted. Not obviously, but Avery felt it, the way his body tensed, the way his expression smoothed into something unreadable. Vincent, Dominic said, his voice carefully neutral, enjoying the exhibition? Not particularly, but business brings me to this neighborhood. Vincent's eyes slid to Avery, assessing. Going to introduce me to your companion? No, Dominic said simply. Vincent's smile sharpened. That's interesting. Not like you to bring personal guests to public places. She must be special. Vincent? Dominic's voice dropped into something dangerous. Walk away. Just making conversation. No, you're making a point. You've made it. Now walk away before this becomes a problem neither of us wants. For a moment, tension crackled between them. Then Vincent laughed, an ugly sound, and stepped back. Enjoy your evening, he said, then walked away, his security following. Avery's heart hammered. Who was that? Someone I do business with occasionally, someone who likes to remind people he's observing them. He was threatening you. He was testing boundaries. There's a difference. Dominic took her arm gently. Come on, Let's get out of here. Outside, the night air felt sharp and clean after the gallery's tension. I'm sorry, Dominic said. That shouldn't have happened. But it did. Because of me. No, because Vincent Castellano likes playing games, and I usually avoid places where I might encounter him socially. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. I wanted to take you somewhere nice. I didn't think, who is he really? Dominic hesitated, then, he runs a rival organization. We have an uneasy truce. Tonight he was making sure I knew he noticed you, noticed that you matter to me. It's a power play. Would he? No, Dominic said firmly. Vincent operates by rules. He won't touch you. But I need you to understand that being seen with me puts you in a spotlight I can't always control. Avery processed this, the reality of his world crystallizing. This is what you meant about complicated. Yes. They walked in silence for a block. Then Avery said, Take me somewhere else. What? You wanted to show me something nice. The gallery's ruined. Take me somewhere else. Dominic studied her. Are you sure? No, but I'm here anyway. He took her to a small jazz club in the village, the kind of place with dim lighting and a piano player who knew what he was doing. They sat in a corner booth, ordered drinks, and let the music fill the spaces where words felt insufficient. Tell me about your father, Avery said after her second glass of wine loosened her tongue. Dominic's jaw tightened. Why? Because you mentioned him at the wedding, because I want to understand what made you into this. He was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. Then, my father was complicated, brilliant businessman, ruthless when necessary, but he had principles. He believed in loyalty, in protecting our people, in running the organization like a family. When I was growing up, I didn't understand what he did. Just knew people respected him, feared him sometimes, but also came to him when they needed help. What happened the night he died? My uncle, his brother, had been skimming profits for years. My father found out, confronted him privately, gave him a chance to make it right. My uncle decided the easier solution was to remove my father entirely and take over himself. Dominic's voice remained steady, but his hands clenched around his glass. He invited my father to a meeting, brought me along, said it was time I learned the business. Then he put a gun to my father's head and pulled the trigger while his men held me back. Avery reached across the table, covered his hand with hers. I was 17, Dominic continued. Everything I knew about leadership, I learned in the year after that night. My uncle thought killing my father would make him the obvious successor. He didn't count on the fact that my father's people valued loyalty over blood. They chose me. Barely an adult, grieving, terrified, but they chose me. What happened to your uncle? He's dead. I won't pretend I'm sorry about that. Did you? No, but I gave the order. Does that make it better or worse? Avery didn't answer, couldn't answer. This is who I am, Dominic said, turning his hand to grip hers. I make decisions that affect people's lives. I operate in a world where violence is sometimes the only language people understand. I'm not asking you to accept it or approve of it. But if we're going to keep doing this, you need to see all of it. I'm trying, Avery said. This is so far from anything I understand. I know, and I know it would be easier for you to walk away. Find someone whose world makes sense, whose job doesn't come with danger and moral ambiguity. Is that what you want, for me to walk away? No, he said, his voice rough. That's the last thing I want. They stayed until the club closed, talking about everything and nothing, finding their way back to easier ground. When Dominic finally drove her home, he walked her to her door again. Thank you, Avery said, for being honest, even when it's hard. Thank you for not running. Yet, she said, I haven't run yet. Yet is better than already. He touched her face gently, his thumb brushing her cheek just below the scar. Sleep well, Avery. Over the next 2 weeks, they fell into a pattern. Dinners twice a week. Long phone conversations that stretched past midnight. Stolen hours where Dominic would show up at her shop with coffee, stay for 20 minutes of conversation, then disappear back into his complicated world. Emily watched it all with a mixture of concern and encouragement. He's different with you, she observed one night while they made dinner. Chelsea showed me photos from charity events where he's all cold businessman. With you, he smiles. Like actually smiles. That doesn't mean this is a good idea. No, but it means it's real. That counts for something. What Avery didn't tell Emily was how good it felt to be seen. To have someone remember that she preferred tea to coffee, that she loved old architecture, that thunderstorms made her anxious because they sounded like car crashes. Dominic noticed everything, remembered everything, treated her preferences like they mattered. But she also noticed other things. The way his phone buzzed constantly with messages he would glance at and ignore. The careful way he positioned himself in public spaces, always watching exits, always aware of surroundings. The night she saw a bruise on his knuckles that he brushed off as a disagreement that got physical. His world kept intruding, reminder after reminder that this wasn't normal, wasn't safe. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Avery was closing the shop at 6 when a black SUV pulled up outside. Two men got out, not threatening exactly, but not friendly either. The taller one approached the door. "Avery Bennett?" Her heart stopped. "Who's asking?" "We work with Dominic Russo. He asked us to pick you up." "Why?" "There's a situation. He'll explain, but we need to go now." Every instinct screamed danger, but something in the man's voice, urgent but not aggressive, made her grab her purse. They drove in silence to a building in Manhattan's financial district. Marcus met her in the lobby, his expression grim. "What's happening?" Avery demanded. "Where's Dominic?" "Upstairs. There's been—" He paused, choosing words carefully. "A complication. He wanted you somewhere safe." "Safe from what?" "Come on." He led her to a penthouse apartment, sleek, minimally furnished, clearly a safe house more than a home. Dominic stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian. When he saw her, relief flooded his face. He ended the call and crossed to her in 3 strides. "Are you all right?" His hands framed her face, checking for injuries that weren't there. "I'm fine." Confused and slightly terrified, but fine. "What's going on?" Dominic exchanged a look with Marcus, who quietly left the room. "There was an incident this afternoon," Dominic said carefully. "A rival faction, not Vincent's people, someone smaller and stupider, decided to make a move on some of my territory. The situation escalated. There was concern that they might try to leverage people I care about. Understanding hit her like cold water. They were going to come after me. We didn't know for certain, but I wasn't taking chances. So you just had your people pick me up? Without warning? Without asking?" "There wasn't time, There's always time for a phone call, Dominic." Her fear crystallized into anger. "You can't just send armed men to collect me like I'm a package. I was protecting you. By scaring me half to death? By making decisions about my safety without consulting me?" They stared at each other, the tension sharp between them. Finally, Dominic said, "You're right. I should have called. Should have explained. When Marcus told me there might be a threat, all I could think about was getting you somewhere safe. I'm not a child. I'm not some fragile thing that needs to be managed. I know that. Do you? Because right now it feels like you made a unilateral decision about my life without considering that I might want a say in it." Dominic ran both hands through his hair, frustration evident. "This is new for me. Caring about someone who isn't part of this world. Someone I can't just order around or protect through force. I'm trying to figure out how to keep you safe while respecting your autonomy. And I'm clearly not doing a great job." Some of Avery's anger deflated. "What happened? Is the situation resolved?" "For now, the people who made the move have been dealt with. But Avery—" He moved closer, his voice dropping. "This won't be the last time. As long as you're connected to me, there will be people who see you as a weakness they can exploit. So what are you saying?" "I'm saying you need to decide if this is worth it." "If I'm worth it?" "Because I can protect you, but I can't make your life normal. I can't promise there won't be nights like this, moments of fear, complications you never asked for." Avery looked at him, this complicated, dangerous man who brought her coffee and remembered her preferences and looked at her like she was the most fascinating thing he'd ever seen. "I need to think," she said finally. "Of course. Marcus will take you home whenever you're ready. I've posted security outside your building just until we're certain—" "No." "Avery, no security at my building. You don't get to make that decision for me. If I'm in actual danger, we'll discuss it, but I won't live in a cage, even a comfortable one." Dominic looked like he wanted to argue. Instead, he nodded. All right, but please let Marcus drive you home. And keep your phone on. If anything feels wrong, I'll call. I promise. The drive back to Brooklyn was quiet. Marcus didn't try to make conversation, and Avery was grateful. She needed to think, needed to process what had just happened. Emily was waiting when she got home, alerted by the security detail that had briefly appeared and then vanished. What the hell happened? Emily demanded. Avery told her everything. The pickup, the safe house, the argument, Dominic's admission that this would be her life if she stayed with him. So what are you going to do? Emily asked when she finished. I don't know. Part of me wants to run as fast as I can, but another part wants to stay. Is that crazy? Emily was quiet for a moment. Then, remember when I was applying to law schools? You told me that the things worth having are usually the things that scare us the most. That fear isn't a reason to say no. It's just information to consider while deciding. I'm regretting that advice now. Well, I'm not. Ave, only you can decide if this is worth it, but don't let fear make the choice for you. Let it inform the choice, but don't let it decide. That night, Avery lay in bed and thought about the past 3 weeks. The dinners and conversations, the way Dominic looked at her, the feeling of being seen and valued and wanted, but also the danger, the moral ambiguity, the world she didn't understand. Her phone buzzed, a text from Dominic. I'm sorry about tonight. You deserve better than fear and armed escorts. You deserve normal and safe and uncomplicated. I can't give you those things, but I can give you honesty, protection, and everything I am. If that's not enough, I'll understand. She stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed, what if I don't want normal? What if I want real, even if real is complicated? His response came quickly. Then we figure it out together, at your pace, with your boundaries. I'm not going anywhere unless you tell me to. I need time to think. Take all the time you need. I'll be here. The next morning, Avery opened her shop and tried to focus on work, but her mind kept circling back to the same questions. What did she want? What was she willing to risk? Where was the line between brave and stupid? At noon, Chelsea appeared with lunch and determination. Talk, Chelsea demanded, setting down sandwiches. Emily called me. She's worried. Everyone's worried. I'm worried. So talk to me. What's going on in that analytical brain of yours? Avery laid it all out. Her feelings, her fears, the impossible choice between safety and possibility. Here's what I think, Chelsea said when she finished. You've spent 8 years playing it safe, building a life that protects you from pain and rejection and risk. And it's worked. You have your shop, your sister, your small circle of people who love you. But is it enough? It was. Before Dominic. Before I remembered what it felt like to want something that scared me. Chelsea reached across the table, took her hand. Only you can decide if he's worth the risk. But Avie, you're allowed to choose something messy and complicated. You're allowed to want more than just safe. That afternoon, Avery made her decision. She texted Dominic, "Can you come to the shop at closing? We need to talk." His response was immediate. "I'll be there." At 6 o'clock, as the last customer left, Dominic appeared. He looked nervous, an expression she'd never seen on him before. "Hi," she said. "Hi." They stood in the middle of her shop, surrounded by flowers and fading sunlight, and Avery took a breath. "I've been thinking about what you said, about not being able to give me normal or safe or uncomplicated." "Avery, let me finish." She moved closer. "I don't want normal. Normal is what I've had for 8 years, and it's been small and careful and lonely. What I want is real. I want someone who sees me, all of me, and doesn't flinch. Someone who makes me want to be brave even when I'm terrified." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying yes. To this, to you, to whatever complicated thing we're building, but I need boundaries." Relief flooded his face. "Anything. You don't make decisions about my safety without consulting me. You don't send people to collect me without warning. You treat me like a partner in this, not something fragile to be protected." "Done. And you have to be honest with me. I don't need to know every detail of your business, but if something affects me or Emily, I need to know." "I can do that." "And She paused, gathering courage. You have to understand that I'm still figuring this out. That some days I'm going to be scared and uncertain and questioning every choice. I need you to be patient with that. Dominic closed the distance between them, his hands gentle on her face. I can be patient. I can give you space and time and whatever you need. What I can't do is let you go, not now that I've found you. That's a very intense thing to say. I'm a very intense person. You should probably get used to that. Then he kissed her, soft and careful and full of promise. And Avery kissed him back, making her choice, stepping into the light despite every reasonable fear. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dominic rested his forehead against hers. So we're doing this, he said. We're doing this. It's going to be complicated. You've mentioned that. He smiled, that real smile she was learning to treasure. Come on, let me take you to dinner, somewhere quiet where we can figure out what happens next. I'd like that. As they left the shop, Avery caught her reflection in the window, hair pulled back, scar visible, smiling genuinely for the first time in years. She looked like someone who'd stopped hiding. She looked like someone who'd chosen brave. And as Dominic took her hand, she realized that maybe, just maybe, that was exactly who she wanted to be. The next 6 weeks felt like learning to breathe in a different atmosphere. Avery had expected complications, had braced herself for the weight of Dominic's world pressing against her carefully constructed life. What she hadn't expected was how seamlessly he wove himself into the spaces between her routines, how naturally their lives began to merge despite operating in completely different orbits. He came to the shop most mornings before she opened, bringing coffee and pastries from a bakery in Little Italy that his family had patronized for 3 generations. They'd sit among the flowers while dawn light crept through the windows, talking about everything and nothing, stealing 30 minutes of normalcy before their respective days demanded attention. Emily approved, cautiously. She'd subjected Dominic to an interrogation over dinner that would have made seasoned prosecutors proud, asking pointed questions about his intentions, his business, his ability to keep Avery safe without suffocating her independence. She's brilliant, Dominic had told Avery afterward. Terrifying, but brilliant. She's going to make an excellent lawyer. She made you sweat. A little, but I respect that. She loves you. She should be protective. They established boundaries with the care of people diffusing explosives. Avery made it clear she wouldn't ask about the details of his business operations, didn't want to know about the gray and black areas where his organization functioned. Dominic promised to warn her about potential dangers without wrapping her in cotton wool, to treat her like an adult capable of assessing risk. It worked, mostly. Until it didn't. The call came on a Wednesday afternoon in late October. Avery was designing centerpieces for a corporate event when her phone rang. Chelsea's number, but the voice on the other end was Harrison's, tight with panic. Avery, is Chelsea with you? No, I haven't seen her since lunch yesterday. Why? A pause, heavy with something that made Avery's stomach clench. She's missing. Left for a doctor's appointment this morning and never came home. Her phone's going straight to voicemail. I've called everyone we know and I don't know what to do. Have you called the police? They said it hasn't been long enough, that she's an adult who might have just lost track of time, but Avery, she wouldn't do that. Something's wrong. I can feel it. Avery's mind raced. I'm calling you back in 5 minutes. She ended the call and immediately dialed Dominic. He answered on the first ring. I need your help, she said without preamble. Chelsea's missing. Tell me everything. She relayed Harrison's information, heard Dominic's tone shift from warm to all business in seconds. Give me 10 minutes, he said. Don't do anything until I call you back. Dominic, 10 minutes, Avery. Trust me. 7 minutes later, her phone rang. She's in Manhattan, Dominic said without preamble. Marcus tracked her phone. It's off now, but the last ping was in Hell's Kitchen near 10th Avenue. That's not a doctor's office neighborhood. How did you... Never mind. What do we do? We? Nothing. I'm sending Marcus and a team to locate her. Dominic, she's my best friend. I'm not sitting this out. A heavy sigh. I knew you were going to say that. Fine. But you stay with me, you follow my instructions exactly, and if I tell you to leave, you leave. No arguments. Agreed. He picked her up 20 minutes later, Marcus driving while Dominic made rapid-fire calls in Italian, his voice clipped and commanding. Avery had never seen this version of him, the crime boss, the leader who people obeyed without question. It should have frightened her. Instead, she felt oddly reassured. "Here's what we know," Dominic said, ending his last call. "Chelsea's credit card was used at a pawn shop in Hell's Kitchen 2 hours ago. The shop owner remembers her, said she looked distressed, pawned her wedding ring and a diamond bracelet for cash." Avery's blood ran cold. Chelsea would never pawn her wedding ring, not voluntarily. "That's what I thought. Marcus?" "Already there, boss. Shop owner's being cooperative." They pulled up to a dingy storefront wedged between a laundromat and a bodega. Marcus stood outside with 2 other men and a nervous-looking man in his 50s who kept glancing at Marcus like he might be devoured. "Mr. Chen," Dominic said, his voice perfectly polite and absolutely terrifying. "Thank you for your cooperation. Tell us exactly what happened." Chen spoke rapidly, his hands shaking. "The lady came in around 11, said she needed cash fast, no questions. She was crying, kept looking at her phone. Pawned the ring and bracelet for $800, way under value, but she insisted. Then she left in a cab heading west." "Did she say why she needed the cash?" "No, but she was scared. Really scared." Dominic pulled out his phone, showed Chen a photo. "Was she with anyone? Did you see anyone following her?" "No, she was alone. But when she left, a black sedan pulled out after the cab. I noticed because it had been parked across the street for a while." "License plate? Didn't see it. I'm sorry." Dominic handed him a card. "If you remember anything else, call this number immediately." Back in the car, Avery's hands trembled. "Someone took her. Someone's forcing her to get money." "It looks that way," Dominic said grimly. He made another call, this one in English. "I need traffic camera footage for the area around Chen's Pawn, 10th Avenue between 42nd and 45th, last 3 hours. Yes, now. I'll hold." "You can just request traffic footage?" Avery asked. "I can request a lot of things." Within minutes, Dominic had an address, a storage facility on the west side where the cab had dropped Chelsea. He also had something else, information that made his jaw tighten and his eyes go cold. "The sedan belongs to a small-time operator named Ricky Castellano," he said quietly. "Castellano? Like Vincent?" "Vincent's nephew. Stupid, reckless, always trying to prove himself to his uncle." Dominic's hands clenched. "This is because of me. Because Vincent saw you at the gallery. Because he's sending a message." "What kind of message?" "That he can reach the people I care about. That nowhere is safe." He looked at her, something raw in his expression. "Avery, I'm sorry. This is exactly what I warned you about." "We can deal with your guilt later," Avery said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Right now, we find Chelsea." The storage facility was a hulking concrete building surrounded by chain-link fence. Marcus had already positioned men at key points, and when Dominic's car pulled up, he approached immediately. "Unit 237, 3rd floor. 2 guards posted outside. We can take them quietly, but boss..." He glanced at Avery. "She shouldn't be here for this." "I'm not leaving," Avery said before Dominic could speak. "Avery, she's my best friend. I'm not leaving." Dominic studied her, then nodded once. "You stay behind me. You don't move unless I tell you to. And if shooting starts, you run. Understood?" Her mouth went dry. "Shooting? Hopefully it won't come to that, but I need your word." "You have it." They entered through a side door Marcus's men had already secured. The interior was dimly lit, rows of orange storage units stretching in every direction. They climbed stairs in silence, Dominic moving with lethal precision, Marcus and his team flanking them. At Unit 237, 2 men stood guard, young, armed, trying to look tougher than they were. When they saw Dominic, their bravado faltered. "Walk away," Dominic said quietly. "Right now. Tell Ricky that Dominic Russo is here and he has exactly 60 seconds to open this door and release the woman inside before this becomes a situation his uncle won't be able to fix." The guards exchanged glances. One reached for his phone. Marcus was faster, his gun appearing with practiced ease. "Not a good idea," Marcus said conversationally. The door opened from inside. A man emerged, mid-20s, expensive jacket, cocaine confidence in his eyes. Ricky Castellano. "Russo," he said with a smirk. "Didn't think you'd find us this fast." "Where is she?" "The pretty blonde?" "She's fine. Just having a conversation with my associate about some money her husband owes my uncle." Avery's sharp intake of breath made Ricky's eyes shift to her. His smirk widened. "And you must be the flower girl. Heard a lot about you. My uncle's very interested in—" He didn't finish the sentence. Dominic moved faster than Avery could track, had Ricky against the wall with a gun pressed under his chin before the younger man could blink. "You have 5 seconds to produce that woman unharmed," Dominic said, his voice dead calm. "After that, I stopped being reasonable." "You wouldn't. My uncle. Your uncle is going to be very disappointed when he hears his nephew started a war over nothing. 4 seconds. It's not nothing. Harrison Whitmore owes us $50,000 for 3 seconds. Ricky's confidence cracked. "Fine. She's inside. She's fine. We just wanted the money." Dominic nodded to Marcus, who moved past them into the storage unit. Seconds later, he emerged with Chelsea, disheveled, mascara streaked, but alive. She saw Avery and nearly collapsed. Oh my God, Ave!" Avery caught her friend, holding her tight while Chelsea shook. "I've got you. You're safe." "Harrison, they said Harrison owes them money. They were going to hurt me if he didn't pay." "We're handling it," Avery said, her voice fierce. "You're safe now." Dominic still had Ricky pinned. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to call your uncle. You're going to tell him this was a mistake, that you acted without authorization. Then you're going to personally apologize to Mrs. Whitmore for frightening her." "Fuck you!" The gun pressed harder. "That wasn't a request." Ricky made the call, his voice shaking. When he finished, Dominic released him and stepped back. "The Whitmore debt will be addressed through proper channels," Dominic said. "Not through kidnapping civilians. You tell Vincent I'll be in touch. And Ricky?" He leaned in close. "If you ever come near either of these women again, your uncle won't be able to protect you from what I'll do. We clear?" Ricky nodded frantically. Marcus escorted Chelsea and Avery out, while Dominic remained behind for what he called cleanup. In the car, Chelsea couldn't stop shaking. "I didn't know," she said through tears. "Harrison never told me about any debt. I thought he was doing well. I thought everything was fine." "It's not your fault," Avery said firmly. "None of this is your fault. They showed me photos of you, of Emily, of Harrison's parents. They said if we didn't cooperate—" She broke off, sobbing. Cold rage flooded through Avery. She'd known Dominic's world was dangerous, but knowing abstractly and seeing her best friend terrified were entirely different things. By the time they reached Chelsea and Harrison's apartment, Harrison was pacing the living room like a caged animal. When he saw Chelsea, he pulled her into his arms, his own tears flowing. "I'm sorry," he kept saying. "I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen." Dominic arrived 20 minutes later, his expression unreadable. He accepted Harrison's frantic thanks with a curt nod, then asked to speak with him privately. In the study, with the door closed, Avery heard raised voices. Harrison's defensive, Dominic's controlled but firm. When they emerged 15 minutes later, Harrison looked pale and chastened. "The debt is real," Dominic said to Avery and Chelsea. "Harrison borrowed money to cover some investment losses 6 months ago. He's been paying it back, but he fell behind on the schedule." "I thought I could catch up," Harrison said miserably. "I had a deal coming through, but it fell apart, and suddenly I was 2 months behind and they started making threats." "Why didn't you tell me?" Chelsea demanded. "I didn't want to worry you. I thought I could fix it myself." "By letting them terrorize me? By putting my friends in danger?" "Chelsea, no, Harrison. This is—" She looked at Dominic. "What happens now? Do they come back? Are we safe?" "You're safe," Dominic said. "I'm restructuring the debt. Harrison will make payments directly to my organization instead of Vincent's. No interest, reasonable schedule, and he's going to work off part of it through legitimate employment in one of my companies." "What?" Harrison looked stunned. "You have an MBA from Wharton and 5 years' experience in investment banking. I have several businesses that could use someone with your expertise. You'll work for me, earn a legitimate salary, and a portion of that salary will go toward the debt until it's cleared. Probably take you about 2 years." Why would you do that? Dominic glanced at Avery. Because the alternative is letting Vincent's people continue to see you as leverage. This way, you're under my protection. Anyone who touches you or your wife answers to me. Harrison sagged with relief. I don't know what to say. Say you've learned your lesson about going to loan sharks when you have financial problems. Say you'll be honest with your wife going forward, and say you'll show up Monday morning ready to work. Dominic's voice hardened. I'm offering you a way out, Harrison. Don't make me regret it. I won't, I swear. In the car afterward, Avery sat in silence while Dominic made more calls, tying up loose ends. When he finally ended the last one, she turned to him. You just hired someone to protect me, she said quietly. I hired someone because he has skills I can use and because keeping him close keeps you and Chelsea safer. It's practical. It's a massive financial hit. The interest alone on $50,000 over 2 years is irrelevant. He looked at her. You're not irrelevant. Your safety isn't irrelevant. I told you I'd protect you. This is what that looks like. You gave up money and power to keep me safe. I gave up nothing that matters. His hand found hers. Are you angry? No, She struggled for words. Overwhelmed and scared and grateful. And I don't know how to reconcile all of that. You don't have to reconcile it tonight. Tonight you just have to breathe. Back at her apartment, Emily was waiting with worry etched on her face. Avery filled her in on everything while Dominic stood by the window, giving them space but present. So Harrison works for Dominic now? Emily asked. Apparently. And Vincent Castellano knows you're important to Dominic? Seems that way. Emily looked at Dominic. How much danger is my sister in? Less than she was this morning, Dominic said honestly. Vincent now knows that touching Avery or anyone she cares about means war. He's ruthless, but he's not stupid. He won't risk his organization over a point he's already made. But other people might. Possibly, which is why I'm assigning security. No, Avery said immediately. Avery, we talked about this. No unilateral decisions about my safety. That was before someone kidnapped your best friend to send me a message. Dominic's control cracked slightly. I can't. I won't sit back and wait for something worse to happen. So what are you suggesting? Bodyguards following me everywhere? Cameras in my shop? That's not living. That's existing in a cage. It's temporary, just until things settle. And when do things settle in your world? Next month? Next year? Never? They stared at each other, the tension thick enough to cut. Emily cleared her throat. Can I make a suggestion? They both looked at her. Compromise. Dominic, you increase security around the building and the shop, but not intrusive stuff. Cameras, better locks, maybe someone monitoring from a distance. Avery, you take basic precautions. Check in regularly, vary your routine, stay aware of surroundings. Both of you stop trying to control things you can't control and focus on what you can. Dominic looked like he wanted to argue. So did Avery. But Emily's suggestion had the virtue of being reasonable. Fine, Avery said finally, but nothing that makes my customers uncomfortable. And I reserve the right to revoke permission if it feels suffocating. Agreed, Dominic said, but you actually have to follow the precautions, not just agree and then forget. I'm not a child. No, you're stubborn and independent, and I'm terrified something will happen to you because I brought you into this world. The honesty in his voice stopped her anger cold. Dominic, I've made a lot of choices in my life I'm not proud of, he continued, but the worst thing I could do is let something happen to you because I was too proud or too stupid to take proper precautions. Avery crossed to him, took his hands. Nothing happened to me. Chelsea's safe. Harrison's going to make this right. We're all okay. This time is all we have. We can't live our lives terrified of what might happen next. He pulled her close, his arms tight around her. I'm not used to caring about people who aren't part of this life. People who don't understand the risks, who aren't trained to handle threats. It's terrifying. Welcome to my world, Avery said into his chest. I've been terrified since our first dinner. That makes two of us. They stood like that for a long moment while Emily tactfully disappeared into her room. Stay tonight, Avery said quietly. Just stay. I don't want to be alone. Are you sure? No, but I'm asking anyway. He stayed, They didn't do more than hold each other while Avery processed the day's terror, while Dominic made quiet calls ensuring security measures were in place, while both of them tried to find equilibrium in a situation that had none. At some point, Avery drifted into uneasy sleep, and she woke to find dawn light creeping through her windows and Dominic still there, awake, watching her. "Did you sleep at all?" she asked. "Some. Mostly I've been thinking." "About?" "About how to keep you safe while letting you live your life. About whether I'm being selfish, keeping you in my world when it would be safer for you if I walked away." Avery sat up. "Are you thinking about walking away?" "Every day? Every time something like yesterday happens, I think about how much easier your life would be without me in it." "Easier isn't the same as better, isn't it?" "No." She turned to face him fully. "Dominic, I'm not going to lie. Yesterday scared me. Seeing Chelsea terrified, knowing it happened because of your world, understanding that this could happen again, all of that is heavy. But you know what's heavier? The thought of going back to the life I had before you, small and safe, and so carefully controlled that nothing could hurt me because nothing could reach me. Avery, I'm not done. You made me want more, want bigger, want to step out of the shadows and actually live instead of just surviving. That's worth the complications. You're worth the complications. You can't know that, not yet. Maybe not, but I know I want to find out, and I know that I'm tired of letting fear make my decisions." She took his face in her hands. "I'm scared. I'm probably going to be scared a lot, but I'm also here. I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you." He kissed her then, deep and desperate and full of everything they couldn't say. When they finally broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. "I don't deserve you," he said. "Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway." Over the next few days, life slowly returned to something resembling normal. Chelsea and Harrison worked through their issues in therapy, with Harrison showing up Monday morning to his new job looking appropriately humbled. Marcus installed subtle security measures, upgraded locks, cameras positioned to monitor approaches but not intrude, a quiet presence that Avery barely noticed until she actively looked for it. Dominic was careful, checking in regularly but not smothering her, balancing his protective instincts with her need for independence. And Avery tried to settle into this new reality where danger was possible but not constant, where loving someone meant accepting risks she'd spent years avoiding. But in the quiet moments, sitting in her shop surrounded by flowers while Dominic brought her coffee, or walking through Brooklyn with his hand in hers, or lying in her bed while he told her stories about his mother, she found something she hadn't expected. Peace. Not the kind that came from control or careful avoidance, but the kind that came from choosing something real despite its complications. 2 weeks after Chelsea's ordeal, Harrison showed up at the shop during lunch. "I wanted to thank you," he said awkwardly, "for everything, for not judging me, for convincing Dominic to give me a chance, for being there for Chelsea when I failed her." "You didn't fail her," Avery said. "You made a mistake. You're fixing it. It's a big mistake. $50,000. $50,000 is nothing compared to losing her trust. Focus on rebuilding that." He nodded, looking younger than his 32 years. "Can I ask you something? About Dominic?" "Maybe." Is he as dangerous as people say?" Avery considered the question carefully. "He's dangerous when he needs to be. But he's also honorable in his way. He follows a code, he protects his people, and he keeps his word. That's more than I can say for a lot of people operating in legitimate businesses." "Chelsea says you're in love with him." The statement caught her off guard. We haven't." "It's okay. I'm not judging. I just wonder how you reconcile it. The danger, the moral ambiguity, all of it." Avery was quiet for a moment, then she said, "I spent 8 years hiding from everything that scared me. Hiding from people, from risk, from the possibility of rejection or pain. It worked. I was safe. But I was also lonely and small and so afraid of being hurt that I forgot how to actually live. Dominic reminded me what it feels like to want something despite the fear. To choose something because it matters, not because it's easy. But what if it goes wrong? What if someone gets hurt? Then someone gets hurt and we deal with it. But I'm done making decisions based on what might go wrong instead of what might go right." Harrison left looking thoughtful, and Avery went back to her flowers. those words echoing in her own head. Was she in love with Dominic? The thought terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. That night, Chelsea called. "Harrison told me what you said," she announced without preamble, "about choosing what matters over what's easy." I may have gotten philosophical. Ave, are you happy? Really happy? Avery thought about it, about morning coffee and midnight conversations, about the way Dominic looked at her like she was the most fascinating person he'd ever met, about feeling seen and valued and wanted despite every insecurity that screamed she wasn't enough. "Yeah," she said softly. "I think I am." "Then that's all that matters. Everything else is just noise." Later that week, Dominic took her to a small Italian restaurant in the Bronx where his grandmother used to take him as a child. They sat in a corner booth, sharing pasta and wine, and he told her stories about growing up in a world she could barely imagine. "My father used to say that power without purpose is just tyranny," Dominic said, twirling linguine. "That we had responsibilities to the people who depended on us, to the neighborhoods we operated in. He believed in something bigger than just making money." Do you believe that? I try to. It's harder than it sounds. Balancing what's right with what's necessary, what's moral with what keeps people alive. He set down his fork. "But being with you makes me want to be better, to build something that's more than just territory and influence." "What does that look like?" "I don't know yet, but I'm starting to think about legitimate businesses, about transitioning away from the gray areas. It would take years, and it would be dangerous. People don't like change, and there are those who'd see it as weakness. But maybe it's possible. Because of me? Because of what you represent. A life that's bigger than just survival and control. A future that looks different than the past." Avery reached across the table, took his hand. "That's a lot of pressure to put on one person. I'm not putting it on you. I'm saying you make me want to be the kind of man who deserves you. That's different." Walking back to the car, Dominic pulled her into a dark doorway and kissed her like he was memorizing the taste of her, the feel of her, the moment itself. "What was that for?" she asked breathlessly. "For choosing me. For staying. For making me believe that there might be more to life than just the next crisis or the next power play." "Dominic, I'm falling for you, Avery. I probably shouldn't tell you that. It's too soon, too much pressure, too many complications. But I need you to know, I'm falling, and I don't want to stop." Her heart hammered against her ribs. She should be careful, should protect herself, should slow this down before it became too much to walk away from. Instead, she said, "Good, because I'm falling too." They stood in that doorway while the city hummed around them, two people from different worlds choosing each other despite every reason not to, and for the first time since the accident 8 years ago, Avery felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be, for a funeral service. When Chelsea burst through the shop door, her face flushed with distress. "Ava, I need to talk to you, now." Avery set down her shears, concern immediate. "What's wrong? Is it Harrison?" "Yes. No, I mean..." Chelsea pressed her hands to her face. "He's in trouble again. Different kind of trouble this time." They sat in the small office at the back of the shop, and Chelsea pulled out her phone with shaking hands. "Harrison's been getting threats," she said. "Anonymous messages saying he needs to convince Dominic to forgive the debt entirely, that working it off isn't good enough, that he needs to make it disappear." Avery's stomach dropped. "Who's sending them?" "We don't know, but Chelsea's voice cracked. "The last message said if Harrison doesn't make this happen, they'll make sure I regret it. They sent a photo of me leaving my yoga class yesterday. They're watching me." "Have you told Dominic?" "Harrison's terrified to. He thinks Dominic will see it as him being ungrateful, as trying to manipulate the situation. And I don't know what to do. I can't ask you to help because it's not fair to put you in the middle, but I don't know who else to trust." Avery took her friend's hands. "Of course I'll help. Let me talk to Dominic." "Are you sure? I don't want to cause problems between you two." "You're not causing anything. Someone's threatening you. That's what matters." That evening, Avery met Dominic at his penthouse apartment. The real one, not the safe house. It was the first time she'd been there, and the space surprised her. She'd expected cold and modern, all glass and steel. Instead, she found warmth. Rich wood floors, comfortable furniture, bookshelves lined with actual books, photographs of people who must have been family. "This is beautiful," she said, running her fingers along a leather-bound volume of poetry. "My mother decorated it," Dominic said, pouring wine. "I haven't had the heart to change much." "You miss her." "Every day." He handed her a glass. "But you didn't ask to come over to discuss interior design. What's wrong?" She told him about Chelsea's visit, about the threats, watching his expression shift from warm to ice-cold in seconds. "Show me the messages," he said. Avery pulled them up on her phone. Chelsea had forwarded them. 5 messages over 3 days, escalating from suggestion to demand to outright threat. Dominic read them twice, his jaw tight. "The debt arrangement was generous. Harrison knows that. Anyone with sense knows that. Chelsea thinks someone's trying to use Harrison to manipulate you. They are, and they're using the women to do it." He set down the phone with deliberate care. "This is Vincent. Has to be. He's testing boundaries again, seeing if he can force my hand through indirect pressure." "What are you going to do?" "Handle it. But Avery," he turned to her, "this is going to get complicated. I need to make it clear that threatening civilians under my protection has consequences, but I also need to do it in a way that doesn't escalate into open war." "Which means what exactly?" "Which means I need to have a conversation with Vincent that makes certain things very clear. And I need Harrison to stop being terrified and actually communicate when threats occur instead of hoping they'll go away." "He's scared. You're intimidating even when you're being helpful." "Good. People should be scared of consequences. But Harrison needs to understand that I can't protect people who don't tell me when protection is needed." Dominic pulled out his phone. "I'm calling a meeting. Tomorrow night. Harrison, Chelsea, you, me, and Marcus. We lay everything out, establish protocols, and make sure everyone understands what's at stake. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving." He paused. "Is it? You forgot Thanksgiving?" "I've had a lot on my mind." He set down his phone. "Do you have plans? With Emily?" "We usually have a quiet dinner, nothing elaborate. She's actually spending this year with her boyfriend's family in Connecticut, so I was planning to just—" She stopped, realizing how pathetic it sounded. "Spend it alone?" "Maybe. I don't know. Holidays have been hard since my parents died." Dominic was quiet for a moment, then, "Have Thanksgiving with me. Here, I'll cook. I'm actually not terrible in the kitchen. We can do the meeting in the afternoon, then have dinner, just us." "You want to spend Thanksgiving with me?" "I want to spend most days with you. Thanksgiving seems like a particularly good one." Something warm bloomed in Avery's chest. "Okay. Yes, but I'm helping cook." "Deal." The next afternoon, Harrison and Chelsea arrived at the penthouse looking like they were heading to their own execution. Marcus was already there, and his presence, 6 feet 4 inches of controlled intimidation, didn't help their anxiety. "Sit," Dominic said, his voice neither warm nor cold, businesslike. They sat. Avery positioned herself beside Dominic, a silent show of support. "Harrison," Dominic began, "you're going to show me every threat you've received, all of them, nothing held back." Harrison fumbled with his phone, hands shaking as he pulled up message after message, more than Chelsea had known about, at least a dozen over the past 2 weeks. Dominic read them all, his expression darkening with each one. When he finished, he looked at Harrison with something close to disappointment. "You were going to what? Hope they went away? Pay them off somehow? What exactly was your plan?" "I don't know," Harrison said miserably. "I didn't want to seem ungrateful. You've already done so much, and I thought maybe if you just what? Let them terrorize your wife? Put Avery at risk because these messages reference her too?" He leaned forward. "Let me be very clear about something. When you came under my protection, that meant you communicate threats immediately. Not when it's convenient, not when you figured out a plan, immediately. Because every hour you wait is an hour they have to escalate. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't keep people safe." Dominic's voice cut like a blade. "But here's what's going to happen now. Marcus is assigning a security detail to both of you, not negotiable. You're going to vary your routines, check in at designated times, and report anything unusual instantly. Understood?" Chelsea spoke up, her voice small. "What about the debt? They want you to forgive it entirely." "The debt stands as is," Dominic said firmly. I'm not making financial concessions because someone's trying to manipulate me through threats. That sets a precedent I can't afford, but he paused. I'm going to make it clear to Vincent Castellano that civilians under my protection are off limits. That will handle the threat. How? Harrison asked. That's not your concern. Your concern is showing up to work, making your payments, and keeping your wife safe by following the protocols we established today. They spent the next hour going over security measures, communication protocols, what to do if threats escalated. Marcus was thorough, patient in a way that surprised Avery, explaining everything like he was teaching a class rather than preparing them for danger. When Harrison and Chelsea finally left, with Marcus's team following at a discreet distance, Dominic stood at the window, tension radiating from his shoulders. That was harsh, Avery said quietly. It was necessary. Harrison's a good man, but he's weak when it counts. Weakness gets people killed. He's scared. Then he should have said something sooner. Dominic turned to her. I know that sounds cold, but in my world, hesitation and poor communication are how civilians get caught in crossfire. I need Harrison to understand that. I think he does now. Good. He crossed to her, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. I'm sorry. This isn't how I wanted to spend Thanksgiving afternoon. It's okay. You're protecting my friends. I appreciate that. Even when I'm being harsh? Even then. Someone needs to be the bad cop. It might as well be you. He almost smiled. Come on, let's cook something. I need to do something with my hands that doesn't involve making threats or contingency plans. Cooking with Dominic was a revelation. He moved through the kitchen with the same precision he brought to everything else. But there was joy in it, too. He told her stories about learning to make sauce from his grandmother, about Sunday dinners with extended family that lasted for hours, about food being the one place where his world felt normal. My mother used to say that anyone who cooks with love can't be completely lost, he said, stirring risotto with careful attention. Even when I was neck-deep in the family business, doing things I'm not proud of, I'd come home and cook. It kept me tethered to something human. Avery chopped vegetables, watching him work. Do you think about leaving? Walking away from all of it? Sometimes. More now than before. He glanced at her. You make me think about different futures, quieter ones. But you can't just walk away. No. There are too many people who depend on the organization, too many obligations and rivalries that would turn violent if leadership changed hands incorrectly. But I can transition things. Slowly legitimize operations, set up successors, create exit strategies. He added wine to the pan, the alcohol hissing. It would take years, maybe a decade, but it's possible. Would you want that? A legitimate life? I don't know. It's all I've known since I was 17. The question isn't whether I want it. It's whether I'd know how to be anything else. They ate dinner at the table overlooking the city, the light spreading out below them like scattered stars. The food was perfect, the risotto creamy and rich, the roasted vegetables caramelized just right, the wine exactly what the meal needed. This is the best Thanksgiving I've had in years, Avery said, surprising herself with the honesty. Same. Usually I spend it working or at some obligatory dinner with business associates. This is... He searched for words. Better. Much better. After dinner, they moved to the couch, and Avery found herself curled against him, comfortable in a way she hadn't been with anyone in longer than she could remember. Can I ask you something? She said into the quiet. Always. What happens if Vincent doesn't back down? If he escalates instead of retreating? Dominic was quiet for a moment. Then I make choices I'd rather not make. But Avery, I need you to trust that I'll handle it in a way that keeps you and everyone else as safe as possible. That's not really an answer. It's the only answer I can give right now. She sat up, turning to face him. I need you to promise me something. What? Promise that you won't do anything that puts you in danger just to protect me. I can't be the reason you get hurt. Avery, promise me, Dominic. I'm serious. I chose this knowing the risks. But I need to know you're not going to do something reckless because you're trying to protect me. He pulled her close, his voice rough. I can't promise that. Keeping you safe is more important to me than playing it safe myself. That's exactly what I'm afraid of. They held each other while the city glittered below, both understanding that they'd crossed into territory where promises became complicated and safety was always conditional. The next morning, Dominic left early for what he called a necessary conversation. Avery knew better than to ask for details, but the worry sat heavy in her chest all day. She was arranging flowers for a wedding when her phone rang. Marcus. "Is he okay?" she asked immediately. "He's fine. Meeting went as expected, but he wanted me to let you know he'll be late tonight. Don't worry." Marcus, what does as expected mean? A pause. It means Vincent understands the boundaries now. The threats will stop. How can you be sure? Because the boss made it clear what would happen if they didn't, and Vincent's not stupid enough to test him when he's serious. After Marcus hung up, Avery tried to focus on work, but her mind kept circling back to what made it clear meant, what consequences Dominic had threatened, what price he might have paid to keep her safe. He finally showed up at the shop as she was closing, looking tired but unharmed. "It's done," he said simply. "What's done?" "The threat. Vincent's called off his nephew, issued an order that civilians connected to me are off limits. Harrison and Chelsea can breathe easier." "What did you have to give up?" "Nothing I'll miss." He pulled her into his arms. "Stop worrying. I'm fine. You're safe. Everyone's safe." But Avery noticed the tension in his shoulders, the careful way he moved like something hurt. When she pressed, he admitted to a minor disagreement that got physical, but refused to elaborate. That night, lying in her bed with Dominic beside her, Avery found herself struggling with the reality of loving someone whose protection came with violence she couldn't see but could imagine all too well. "Talk to me," Dominic said into the darkness. "I can hear you thinking. I'm trying to reconcile the man who cooks risotto with the man who does whatever you did today to make Vincent back down. They're the same man. I wish I could separate them for you, make it cleaner. But that's who I am, someone who will make you dinner and then go make threats that keep you safe. Both things are true." "I know, sometimes it's hard to hold both truths at once." He turned to face her. "Do you want me to lie? Pretend I handled it with conversation and rational negotiation?" "No, I want the truth. I just wish the truth was simpler." "So do I." He touched her face gently. "But this is what loving me looks like. Complicated truths and hard choices, and knowing that sometimes I do dark things for good reasons. And if I can't reconcile that, then you tell me, and we figure out what comes next. But don't suffer in silence trying to force yourself to be okay with something you're not okay with." Avery thought about that, about the freedom to struggle with the complications rather than pretending they didn't exist. "I'm okay," she said finally. "Not perfectly okay, but okay enough. I just need time to process sometimes." "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." The weeks leading up to Christmas brought an unexpected peace. The threat stopped. Harrison settled into his job with a dedication that surprised everyone, and Chelsea began to relax again. The security measures became routine rather than intrusive, and life found a new equilibrium. Dominic and Avery fell deeper into each other, their relationship settling into comfortable rhythms. He spent most nights at her apartment, leaving early for work and returning with dinner or flowers or small gifts that showed he was thinking of her. They cooked together, talked for hours, made love with an intensity that left them both breathless. Emily approved fully, especially after Dominic quietly arranged for her law school loans to be restructured at a better interest rate through one of his legitimate business contacts. "You don't have to buy my approval," Emily told him over breakfast one morning. "I'm not buying anything," Dominic replied evenly. "You're brilliant and hardworking, and you shouldn't be buried under predatory loans. I had the ability to help, so I did. Still, thank you. Thank your sister. She's made me want to be the kind of man who helps instead of exploits." The only shadow came from Chelsea, who showed up at the shop 3 days before Christmas with news that stopped Avery's heart. "Harrison's debt is paid off," she said, her voice strangely flat. "That's wonderful. How?" Dominic forgave the rest of it. "Just wiped it clean," said Harrison had proven himself and the debt was satisfied. Avery set down the holly she was arranging. "Why do you sound upset? This is good news." "Is it? Or is it Dominic making a gesture because you asked him to?" "I didn't ask him to do anything." "Not directly, but Chelsea sat down heavily. "I can't tell if we're free of this or if we're even more indebted now. if this is kindness or strategy. And I hate that I can't tell the difference anymore. Have you talked to Harrison about this? He's thrilled. Says it's proof that hard work pays off, that Dominic's a man of his word. And maybe it is. Or maybe it's proof that you have more influence over him than you realize, and that influence comes with expectations we can't see yet. Avery felt a chill run down her spine. You think Dominic forgave the debt to manipulate me? I think Dominic does everything for a reason, and I think you being happy is important to him. Important enough to make a $50,000 gesture. That's incredibly cynical. Maybe. Or maybe it's realistic about the kind of man he is. Chelsea stood, her expression softening. I love you, Ave, and I'm grateful for everything Dominic's done, for you being there when I needed you. But I also worry that you're so focused on seeing the best in him that you're not seeing the whole picture. After Chelsea left, Avery sat among her flowers and tried to sort through the confusion. Was the debt forgiveness a gift? A manipulation? Both? Neither? That night she confronted Dominic directly. You forgave Harrison's debt. I did. He didn't look up from the pasta he was making. Why? Because he'd worked hard, proved himself trustworthy, and keeping him financially obligated to me served no purpose. Chelsea thinks you did it because of me, to make me happy. Now he did look up. Would that be so terrible? Using my position to make the woman I love happy? The casual admission, woman I love, should have melted her. Instead, it crystallized her concern. It would be if you're doing it expecting something in return, she said carefully, or if you're building up some kind of debt I don't know about. Dominic set down his spoon, his full attention on her now. You think I'm manipulating you? I think you're used to transactions, to every gesture serving multiple purposes. And I need to know, was forgiving Harrison's debt about helping my friends, or was it about influencing me? Both, he said simply. I genuinely believe Harrison earned it, but yes, part of my decision was knowing it would ease your worry and make Chelsea trust me more. Does that make it manipulation? I don't know. Does it? Avery, everything I do serves multiple purposes. That's how I've survived in my world for 18 years. But that doesn't make my feelings for you transactional. He crossed to her, his voice intense. I love you. Not because it's strategic, not because you're useful to me, but because you make me want to be better than I am. The debt forgiveness? Yes, it made strategic sense. But I also did it because I wanted to give you something that mattered. Both things can be true. How do I know when your gestures are genuine versus when they're strategy? You ask me, like you're doing now, and I'll always tell you the truth, even when it's complicated. He took her hands. I'm not going to pretend I don't think strategically, but my feelings for you aren't strategy. They're the least strategic thing in my life. Avery looked at him, this complicated man who'd brought light back into her carefully darkened world, and made a choice to trust. Okay, she said. I believe you. Just like that? Not just like that. But I'm choosing to believe you because the alternative is spending our relationship looking for ulterior motives in every kindness. And I don't want to live like that. He pulled her close, and she felt him exhale like he'd been holding his breath. Thank you, he said into her hair, for trusting me, for asking hard questions, for not letting me get away with easy answers. Someone has to keep you honest. You do that just by existing. Christmas came quietly. Emily returned from Connecticut full of stories about her boyfriend's chaotic family. Chelsea and Harrison hosted a small dinner party where Harrison seemed lighter than he had in months. The weight of debt finally lifted. Dominic gave Avery a vintage botanical print she'd admired at an antique store months ago, proof that he remembered small details, small moments. She gave him a leather-bound journal, empty pages waiting to be filled. For what? He asked, running his fingers over the cover. For the life you want to build. The one that's different from the one you inherited. You told me you think about quieter futures. This is for planning that future. He looked at her with such raw emotion that she had to glance away. I don't deserve you, he said quietly. You've said that before. I still don't agree. Well, you're stuck with me either way. They spent Christmas night at his penthouse, the city spread out below them, talking about possibilities and futures and all the complicated ways their lives were intertwining. I'm going to start transitioning the business, Dominic said suddenly. legitimizing operations, establishing proper corporate structures, creating distance from the gray areas. Because of me? Because of us. Because I want a future that's more than just surviving from crisis to crisis. Because you make me believe that future is possible. He turned to her. It won't be quick, and it won't be safe. People will resist change. We'll see it as weakness. But I'm going to do it anyway. Dominic, I'm not asking you to change your entire life. I know. But I'm choosing to anyway. For me, for you, for whatever we're building together. He pulled out a small box, and Avery's breath caught. But instead of a ring, it held a key. It's not what you think, he said quickly. It's a key to this apartment. I want you to have a place here, not asking you to move in, not yet, but asking you to have somewhere that's ours, where you can be whenever you want. Avery took the key, the metal warm from his hand. This is a big step. I know, but I'm done taking small steps with you. I'm done pretending this is casual or temporary. You're it for me, Avery. However long it takes, whatever complications come, you're it. She kissed him then, pouring everything she couldn't say into the kiss, her love, her fear, her hope, her trust. I'm it for you too, she whispered against his lips. Complications and all. They made love slowly that night, a promise sealed in touch and breath and whispered words. And when Avery fell asleep in his arms, she dreamed not of the past, but of the future they were building together, complicated, imperfect, and absolutely real. The new year arrived with unexpected gentleness, like the city itself had decided to give them a moment of peace before the next storm. Avery spent New Year's Eve at Dominic's penthouse, watching fireworks explode over the harbor, while he held her close and whispered plans for a future that felt increasingly possible. January brought bitter cold and the slow, steady work of building something real. Dominic was true to his word about transitioning the business. Avery could see it in the late-night meetings that shifted from his usual associates to lawyers and accountants, in the way he talked about corporate structures and legitimate investments with an intensity that matched how he used to discuss territory disputes. I'm setting up a foundation, he told her one morning over coffee at the shop, for families affected by violence, scholarships, counseling services, job training, using some of the family money for something that actually helps people. That's incredible, Avery said, genuinely moved. What made you think of it? You did. The way you rebuilt after your accident, the way you help Emily, the way you create beautiful things instead of destructive ones. I want to do something like that. Build instead of just control. She kissed him, tasting coffee and promise. I'm proud of you. Don't be proud yet. It's going to take years to fully legitimize everything, and there are people who won't like it. He was right about that. The resistance came in mid-February, brutal and calculated. Avery was working late at the shop, putting the finishing touches on arrangements for a Valentine's Day wedding when Marcus appeared at the door. We need to go, he said, his voice tight with urgency. Now! What happened? The boss. There's been an incident. Terror flooded through her. He's alive, but we need to move. In the car, Marcus explained with clipped efficiency. A faction within Dominic's own organization had made a move against him. 3 men who'd been with the family for years, who saw his legitimization efforts as betrayal. They'd ambushed him leaving a meeting, and while Dominic's security had handled the immediate threat, one of the attackers had gotten close enough to do damage. How bad? Avery asked, her hands shaking. Knife wound to his side. Not fatal, but he needs medical attention. We can't take him to a hospital. Too many questions. We have a private doctor, but the boss asked for you. They drove to a warehouse in Queens that looked abandoned from the outside but was clearly a safe house. Inside, organized chaos, men with weapons, someone barking orders, and in a back room, Dominic sitting on a table while a doctor worked on his side. His shirt was off, blood staining his skin, and when he saw Avery, relief flooded his face despite the obvious pain. You came, he said. Of course I came. She crossed to him, careful not to interfere with the doctor's work. What the hell happened? Internal disagreement that got physical, he said through gritted teeth as the doctor stitched. I'm fine. You're not fine, you're bleeding. I've had worse. The doctor, an older man with steady hands and a professional detachment, spoke without looking up. 14 stitches. You got lucky. Another inch, and we'd be having a different conversation. When the doctor finally finished and left them alone, Avery took Dominic's hand carefully, mindful of his injury. "Tell me the truth," she said. "How bad is this?" Dominic was quiet for a moment, then, "3 of my senior people just tried to kill me. They're not isolated actors. They represent a faction that thinks I've gone soft, that the legitimization is weakness. This was a message." "What kind of message?" "That there will be consequences for changing the way things have always been done. That loyalty has limits." He winced as he shifted position. "I handled the immediate threat. But Avery, this is what I warned you about. This is the danger that comes with trying to change things." "What are you going to do?" "What I have to do. Demonstrate that betrayal has consequences. Make it clear that my authority isn't negotiable." His voice was hard, colder than she'd ever heard it. "It won't be pretty." "Will it be violent?" "Yes." The simple honesty was somehow worse than evasion would have been. Avery felt the weight of it settle over her. This was the reality of loving someone who operated in a world where violence was language and power was currency. "I need you to go home," Dominic said gently. "This is going to get complicated, and I need to know you're safe while I handle it. I'm not leaving you when you're hurt." "I'm not asking. Marcus will take you home, post-security, and I'll come to you when this is resolved." "Dominic?" He pulled her close despite the obvious pain it caused him. "Please. I can handle a lot of things, but I can't handle worrying about your safety while I'm dealing with this. Let me do what I need to do, knowing you're protected." Well, it went against every instinct she had, but Avery recognized the truth. She would be a liability here, a distraction he couldn't afford. "Okay," she said finally, "but you call me. You let me know you're alive and safe. Promise me." "I promise." She kissed him carefully, tasting blood and fear and desperate hope, then let Marcus lead her away. The next 72 hours were the longest of Avery's life. Dominic called twice, brief, clipped conversations that told her he was alive but gave no details. Emily stayed with her, a steady presence, while Avery tried and failed to focus on work, on normalcy, on anything except the sick worry that churned in her stomach. Chelsea called on the second day. "Harrison said there's trouble in Dominic's organization. Is everything okay?" "I don't know," Avery admitted. "He's handling it, but he won't tell me details." "Are you safe?" "Marcus has people watching the building. We're fine." "Ave, maybe you should—" Chelsea paused. "Never mind." "Say it." "Maybe you should think about whether this is sustainable. Loving someone whose world involves this much danger, this much violence you can't see but can imagine all too well." "I've thought about it every day since we started this," Avery said quietly. "I'm still here." "I know. I just worry about you." "I know, but this is my choice, Chels. Complicated and scary as it is, it's my choice." On the third day, Dominic finally came home, or to her apartment, which had become home in the months they'd been together. He looked exhausted, moving carefully because of the stitches, but alive and whole. Avery pulled him inside, checked him over with frantic hands, satisfied herself that he was truly okay. "It's handled," he said when she finally let him speak. "The faction's been dealt with. The rest of the organization understands that the changes are happening whether they like it or not." "How did you deal with them?" "Do you really want to know?" She thought about it, really thought about it. Did she want the details of what dealt with meant? The specifics of violence carried out in her name for her safety? "No," she said finally. "I don't. But I need to know. Did you do things you can't come back from? Things that make the legitimization impossible?" "No. I handled it in a way that reinforces authority without undermining the long-term goals. But Avery," he took her hands, "I won't lie to you. People were hurt. Decisions were made that I'm not proud of. This is who I am when threats emerge. This is what protecting what's mine looks like." "I know." She did know, had known from the beginning. "Are you okay?" The question seemed to surprise him. "I'm alive." The bleeding stopped. "I'll heal." "That's not what I asked. Are you okay? Emotionally, mentally, in all the ways that matter beyond the physical?" He pulled her close, and she felt him exhale shakily. "I don't know. I've done things this week that—" He stopped. I don't know how to reconcile the man who wants to build foundations and legitimize businesses with the man who just did what I did. I don't know how you reconcile them. The same way I've been reconciling them since we met, Avery said, by understanding that you contain multitudes, that you can be both violent and gentle, strategic and sincere, dark and light. You're not one thing, Dominic. You're everything at once. That's very generous. It's very honest. She pulled back to look at him. I'm not naive about who you are, but I also refuse to reduce you to just the dark parts. You're more than that. We're more than that. They held each other while the city hummed beyond her windows, two people choosing each other despite every complication, every danger, every reason to walk away. Over the next weeks, life slowly normalized again. Dominic's wound healed cleanly. The organization stabilized under his renewed authority. The legitimization efforts continued, slower now, but steady, and Avery's shop thrived. In March, she hired her first employee, a young woman named Sarah who had an eye for design and desperately needed a second chance after a rough few years. In April, she expanded into the space next door, doubling her square footage and inventory. You're building an empire, Dominic teased one evening while helping her arrange the new space. Hardly, just a slightly bigger shop. It's more than that. You're creating something that lasts, something that helps people. Sarah, your customers, everyone who walks in and leaves with beauty in their hands. You sound proud. I am proud. You took something small and scared and you grew it into something confident and thriving. That takes courage. She looked at him, this complicated man who'd helped her find that courage, and felt overwhelming gratitude mixed with love so deep it sometimes frightened her. Thank you, she said. For what? For seeing me, for making me want to be seen, for helping me remember that I'm more than my scars. Avery, you were always more than your scars. I just helped you remember. In May, Emily graduated law school with honors and accepted a position at a prestigious firm. At the celebration dinner, she gave a speech that made Avery cry. I wouldn't be here without my sister, Emily said, raising her glass. She sacrificed her own dreams to help me achieve mine. She showed me what strength looks like, not loud or flashy, but quiet and persistent and absolutely unbreakable. Ave, everything I am is because you believed in me first. Dominic squeezed Avery's hand under the table, and she saw her own emotions reflected in his eyes. Later, as they walked through the city, Dominic said, She's right, you know, about your strength. You don't see it because you're living it, but everyone else does. I don't feel strong. Well, strength isn't about feeling confident. It's about doing hard things despite the fear. You do that every day. So do you. We're quite a pair then? Yes, Avery said, stopping to kiss him under a streetlight. We are. The real test came in June. Dominic had been planning a major charity gala, the launch of his foundation, the first public step in his legitimization efforts. It was being held at the plaza, with society figures and business leaders and politicians all in attendance. A coming-out party for the new Dominic Russo, the philanthropist rather than the crime boss. I want you there, he told Avery, by my side, officially. Dominic, that's public. That puts a spotlight on me. I know, and I know it's asking a lot, but Avery, I don't want to do this without you. You're the reason I'm doing any of this. Having you beside me would mean everything. She thought about it, really thought about it. Going public meant stepping fully into his world, meant being photographed and scrutinized, meant standing in a room full of people with her scar visible and her connection to Dominic obvious. It terrified her. It also felt right. Okay, she said, I'll be there. The night of the gala, Avery stood in front of her mirror and faced herself fully. She wore a deep emerald dress that Emily had helped her choose, elegant, sophisticated, nothing to hide behind. Her hair was up in a sleek bun, her scar completely visible. For 8 years she'd hidden. Tonight, she would be seen. Chelsea arrived to help with final preparations, and when she saw Avery, her eyes filled with tears. Ave, you look beautiful, stunning. I look terrified. You look brave. There's a difference. Dominic picked her up in the town car, and when he saw her, he stopped breathing for a moment. Avery, he said, his voice rough. You're visible, she finished. No hiding tonight. You were never someone who should hide. At the plaza, cameras flashed as they arrived. Avery felt exposed, vulnerable, every insecurity screaming that people were staring at her scar, judging her, wondering what someone like Dominic Russo was doing with someone like her. But Dominic kept her hand firmly in his, introducing her to everyone they met with genuine pride, not as an accessory or an afterthought, but as a partner, someone who mattered. Avery runs the most talented flower shop in Brooklyn, he told a senator. She designed all the centerpieces tonight. Avery has an incredible eye for beauty, he told a business magnate. She sees things other people miss. Avery makes me want to be better than I am, he told a journalist who asked about his inspiration for the foundation. Halfway through the evening, they stood at the bar while Dominic fielded another round of congratulations. A woman approached, elegant, severe, clearly someone used to getting her way. "Mr. Russo," she said, her smile sharp. "What a lovely event, and this must be—" Her eyes raked over Avery, lingering on the scar with obvious curiosity. "Avery Bennett," Dominic said, his voice cooling several degrees. "My partner." "How nice." The woman's tone suggested anything but. "That's quite a scar, dear. Have you considered more surgical options? I know an excellent reconstructive surgeon." The room seemed to tilt. Avery felt the old shame rising, the instinct to shrink away, to hide. But before she could respond, Dominic stepped forward, his voice cutting and cold. "Mrs. Harrison, let me be very clear about something. Avery's scar is a mark of survival, of strength, of everything that makes her extraordinary. Anyone who suggests otherwise is demonstrating their own lack of character, not hers. If you'll excuse us." He guided Avery away, his hand protective on her back. When they were alone on a terrace overlooking Central Park, he turned to her. "Are you okay?" No one's ever—" She couldn't find words. "No one gets to make you feel less than what you are," Dominic said fiercely. "Not in front of me, not ever. You're beautiful, Avery, all of you, and anyone who can't see that isn't worth your time." She kissed him then, not caring who might be watching, not caring about anything except this man who saw her, truly saw her, and chose her anyway. "I love you," she said against his lips. "I love you too. So much it terrifies me." They returned to the gala hand in hand, and Avery noticed something had shifted. She stood taller, smiled more freely, let herself be seen without the constant anxiety of judgment. Later in the evening, Dominic gave a speech about the foundation, about giving back, about using resources to help rather than harm, about building futures instead of protecting territories. "Someone very important to me taught me that strength isn't about control," he said, his eyes finding Avery in the crowd. "It's about choosing growth over safety, about stepping into the light despite the fear. This foundation is my attempt to do that, to step into a different kind of future while honoring where I came from." The applause was thunderous, and when Dominic stepped off the stage, he came straight to Avery. "Dance with me," he said. On the dance floor, surrounded by Manhattan's elite, they moved together with the ease of people who'd learned each other's rhythms. "This is your night," Avery said. "Your triumph." "No, it's our night. I couldn't have done any of this without you." "That's not true." "It is. You made me believe change was possible, that I could be more than what I inherited, that the future could look different than the past." He pulled her closer. "You saved me, Avery. In every way a person can be saved." "You saved me too," she whispered. "Made me remember how to be brave." They danced until the orchestra played its final song, and then Dominic led her out into the warm June night. "Come with me," he said. "There's something I want to show you." They drove to Brooklyn, to her expanded flower shop, and Dominic pulled out a key she didn't recognize. "What's this?" "The building next door. I bought it last month." "You... what?" "I bought it. For you. For whatever you want to do with it. Expand the shop further, create a design studio, open a school for young florists. Whatever you dream, you'll have the space for it." Avery stared at him, overwhelmed. "Dominic, that's too much. It's not nearly enough. You built something beautiful from nothing, Avery. You deserve room to let it grow." He took her hands. "I'm not asking you to accept it as a gift with strings attached. I'm asking you to see it as an investment in your future. Our future." "Our future?" He pulled out a small box, and this time Avery knew exactly what it was. "I'm not good at this," Dominic said, his voice unsteady. I don't have pretty speeches prepared. But Avery, you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. You make me want to be better, do better, build something that lasts. And I want to build it with you. He opened the box, revealing a simple platinum band with a single perfect diamond. Marry me. Be my partner in everything. Help me transition from who I was to who I want to be. Let me spend the rest of my life making sure you never doubt your worth or your beauty or your strength. Tears streamed down Avery's face. Happy tears. Overwhelmed tears. Tears of joy and fear and absolute certainty. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll marry you. He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her like they had all the time in the world, like nothing existed except this moment, this choice, this future they were building together. I'm still going to be complicated, he warned. Still going to have hard days and difficult choices. The transition will take years. I know. I'm still going to be scared sometimes. Still going to struggle with the darker parts of your world. I know. So we'll figure it out together, Avery said. Complicated and scared and absolutely certain this is what we want. Absolutely certain, Dominic agreed. 6 months later, on a crisp December evening, Avery Bennett became Avery Russo in a small ceremony at the same plaza where they'd met at Chelsea's wedding. The guest list was intimate. Emily and her boyfriend, Chelsea and Harrison, Marcus, and a few of Dominic's most trusted people, the small circle of friends Avery had cultivated who loved her for who she was. She wore a simple ivory dress, her hair up, her scar visible, her face radiant with happiness. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, the room fell silent. And when Dominic looked at her with such love that it took her breath away, Avery remembered crying at this exact spot during Chelsea's wedding, feeling invisible and lonely and convinced that joy like this wasn't meant for her. How wrong she'd been. I do, she said when the moment came, her voice strong and clear. I do, Dominic echoed, his eyes never leaving hers. They kissed as husband and wife while their small gathering applauded. Two people who'd found each other in the shadows and chosen to step into the light together. At the reception, Chelsea pulled Avery aside, her eyes bright with tears. You look so happy, Chelsea said. So fully, completely happy. I am. Terrified and uncertain about 1,000 things, but happy. That's all that matters. Chelsea hugged her tight. I'm so proud of you, Ave, for taking the risk, for choosing love over safety. It was always worth the risk, Avery said, looking across the room at her husband, who was laughing at something Marcus said, his whole face transformed by joy. He was always worth it. Later, Dominic pulled her onto the dance floor for their first dance as a married couple. The song was something slow and romantic, perfect for swaying close while the world spun around them. Remember the first time we danced? Dominic asked. At my foundation gala? When you defended me against that awful woman. When I fell even more in love with you than I already was. You were already in love with me then? I was in love with you from the moment you cried at Chelsea's wedding, he admitted. I just didn't have words for it yet. Avery pulled back to look at him. All those tears I tried to hide. You were watching every single one. Every single one. And now I get to watch the happy tears too. The joyful ones, the overwhelmed ones, all of them. You're going to make me cry right now. Good. Cry if you want to. You never have to hide anything from me. So she did cry, right there on the dance floor, happy tears that fell freely while her husband held her close and their small circle of loved ones celebrated around them. A year after the wedding, Avery stood in her expanded shop, now taking up 3 storefronts, employing 6 people, with a design school for underprivileged youth operating in the space Dominic had bought for her. The shop had been featured in design magazines, had done flowers for some of Manhattan's most prestigious events, had become exactly what she'd dreamed it could be. But more than that, it had become a place of transformation. Young people like Sarah came through, learning skills and confidence. Customers came in feeling invisible and left feeling seen. Every arrangement that left her shop carried with it a small piece of the hope she'd found when she stopped hiding. Emily worked nearby now, her law practice thriving, stopping by most mornings for coffee and sister time. Chelsea visited weekly, her friendship with Avery deeper now for having weathered storms together. Harrison had risen through Dominic's legitimate businesses, proving himself valuable beyond the debt that had brought them all together. And Dominic? Dominic had kept his promises. The organization was half legitimized, with plans to complete the transition within 5 years. The foundation thrived, helping hundreds of families affected by violence. He still had hard days, still made difficult choices, but he was building something better than what he'd inherited. He came to the shop most mornings, bringing coffee and stealing kisses between customers, looking at Avery like she was still the most fascinating person he'd ever met. One morning in early spring, Avery was arranging tulips when Dominic appeared with his usual coffee and something else, a small potted plant. "What's this?" she asked. "Sunflower seeds, your mom's favorite, from what you told me." He set the pot on her desk. "I thought maybe we could plant them in the garden at the house. Start a tradition." They'd bought a house in Brooklyn Heights, somewhere with enough space for a garden, for the future they were building. Somewhere that felt like home. "You remembered that?" Avery asked, touched. "I remember everything you've ever told me." He pulled her close. "Besides, I think your mom would approve of me. Eventually. She'd love you for making me brave, for seeing me when I couldn't see myself." "I didn't make you brave, Avery. You always were. You just needed someone to remind you." She kissed him, tasting coffee and love and the sweet promise of ordinary mornings that would stretch into years, into a lifetime. "I love you," she said. "I love you too. Every complicated, beautiful, perfect part of you." Through the shop window, Avery could see the city waking up. People rushing to work, cars honking, life happening in all its chaotic glory. She thought about the woman she'd been at Chelsea's wedding, hiding in the back row, making herself invisible, convinced that safety meant staying small. That woman felt like a stranger now. The woman she'd become, the one who ran a thriving business, who'd married a complicated man and built a complicated life, who wore her hair up and her heart open. That woman knew better. Safety wasn't found in hiding. It was found in choosing brave, in stepping into the light despite the fear, in letting yourself be seen by someone who saw all of you and loved you anyway. Emily appeared at the door, late for work but grinning. "Just wanted to say good morning before my deposition." "Good luck," Avery called. "Don't need it. I'm brilliant, remember?" Emily winked and disappeared into the morning. Dominic's phone buzzed. Business? Always business. But he silenced it without looking. "That could be important," Avery said. "This is more important. This moment, right here." He touched her face gently, his thumb brushing the scar that had once defined her, and now was just one part of everything she was. "Every moment with you is more important than anything else." Later that evening, they planted the sunflower seeds in their garden while the last light faded from the sky. Dominic's hands were gentle with the soil, patient with the placement of each seed. "Think they'll grow?" Avery asked. "With you tending them? Absolutely. You have a gift for making beautiful things flourish." They sat on the garden bench as stars began appearing overhead, and Avery thought about growth, about how sometimes the most beautiful things came from the darkest soil, how strength was built through surviving storms, how love was choosing someone despite knowing all their complications. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For watching me cry at that wedding, for not letting me stay invisible, for making me believe I deserved to be seen. Thank you for letting me see you, for trusting me with all the parts you'd hidden away, for making me believe I could be more than what I inherited." They sat in comfortable silence, two people who'd found each other in the shadows and chosen to build their lives in the light, and Avery knew with absolute certainty that every risk had been worth it, every fear had been worth facing, every tear, the sad ones and the happy ones, had led her exactly where she was meant to be. Home. Seen. Loved. Whole. The girl who used to hide her face had learned to lift her chin, to meet the world's gaze without flinching, to stand in the light and claim her space in it. And the man who'd built his life on control had learned to surrender to something bigger, to love, to hope, to the messy, complicated, absolutely beautiful future they were creating together. As the last light faded and the city lights began their nightly dance across the sky, Dominic pulled Avery close and she rested her head on his shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart, the warmth of his arms, the absolute rightness of this moment. "Happy?" he asked softly. "Incredibly," she answered. "Completely. Happy." And under the spring stars, surrounded by the garden they'd planted and the life they'd built, Avery Bennett Russo smiled, fully, freely, without hiding a single part of herself, and knew that this was what brave looked like. This was what choosing love over fear created. This was what happened when you stopped hiding your face and started living your life. This was everything.